This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on October 23rd, 2024, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Karen Latin, and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast on Xfinity Channel 1072 and is being recorded on the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It's being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. To all participants, whether attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you've been recognized by the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you're attending by phone, you can mute and unmute using *6. If you're online and you are not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off unless you've been recognized. Indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. So that we have a record of a quorum, I will now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Elise Gordon.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey.
Present.
Eric Hilbert.
Present.
Paul Johnson.
Present.
Bob Delvecchio is not here today. And I'm here. We have established that we have a quorum. Before we begin, are there any announcements about any continuances for today? Catherine.
Yes, the following applicants have already requested continuations for this week. 98 Oyster Pond Furlong, the applicant has requested a continuance to January 7th, 2025. And 217 Woodland Way, the applicant has requested to continue to November 6th, 2024.
Thank you. At this point, Catherine Ricks, Chatham's conservation agent, will now lead us through the agenda.
Okay, starting with the request for an order of conditions at 4 Harbor View Road, map 8A, parcel H49 for Roger and Elaine Morrill, DEP SE number 10-3699, invasive plant species control and native plant restoration on and adjacent to a coastal bank.
Thank you. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, good afternoon. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of Elaine and Roger Morrill. I just wanted to review the changes that were made from the previous hearing. I was not able to attend that hearing. Mike Tanis from my office was here. And just discuss overall, I just want to make sure that the goals of the project ultimately are clear. So I guess at the last hearing, the commission requested that some of the cedar sizes be increased and that they be spread out a little bit further. And we've done that. We have increased some of the cedar sizes to 5-gallon. We did spread some around. We're showing some further on the coastal bank, and we're proposing to plant those at a 2-gallon size, mainly because we want to avoid disturbing the existing pristine area in the native plant community in that area. I really want to point out that overall this project is about restoration. We're doing a significant amount of invasive species management. I know a question came up regarding whether or not a variance would be required, and we didn't feel a variance would be required in this particular case because invasive species management and the removal of degraded trees would be considered exempt under your regulations. And as far as the condition of the trees, I do want to point out that they are degraded, they are diseased. They have been pruned for decades. This isn't something that a pruning that just happened over the course of, a few years. This pruning has been going on for a significant amount of time, that the trees are in the condition that they're currently in and really can't continue to be pruned. Even if we came forward with a vista management proposal, we would not be able to properly manage these trees in a healthy way. So we really felt that coming before you with a plan that restored a healthy native ground cover layer, a healthy shrub community, restored some trees within the area, and continued to maintain the existing views from the home without any need to go in and further and have any further disturbance within this 50-foot buffer zone was really important. So that's really what this project was about. And I understand that in the interim time between the time the pool was approved and the commission requested that we bring this project forward, and now some changes have happened to the regulation, and the one-to-one requirement for tree replacement is now part of the regulation. But we just wanted to make sure that it's clear that we are not proposing to remove trees from this site. We're really proposing to remove degraded stumps that have been repeatedly cut and cut and cut, and to replace it with a robust shrub layer, ground cover layer where none currently exists, and now these additional canopy trees. And we are, which I really do believe long-term will better protect the resource area. The coastal bank in this area is pristine. It's in fantastic shape. Removing the invasive vegetation now will prevent it from intruding into that area, and I think overall is a benefit for the resource area on the site. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Did you get the order that was written?
I did. I reviewed it. I didn't see anything out of the
Perfect.
ordinary.
Okay, then I think we can go to a motion unless anybody else has any comments or questions for Teresa.
This has gotten any changes, this is all set, right?
Yep.
I move that we close the hearing on 4 Harbor View and approve the order of conditions as written.
Second.
All right. Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Thank you very much.
All set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Catherine.
Okay, the following is a request for an extension at 0 and 284 Kendrick Road, map 14K, parcel 9-7 and 12C-4B3 for Tim Reese, DEP SC number 10-3275, elevation of a home to FEMA compliant foundation and septic, plantings and dune restoration project. The reason for the request is to allow additional time to nourish the approved beach dune if needed, to repair erosion from storm events, and to further establish the native grass species to help reduce erosion during said storm events. Extension number 3 expires 11/29/24.
Great, thank you. So this is the last extension that can be given for this, just so that if any representatives are listening to this or online. I guess we can go to a motion.
I move that we approve the final extension for 0 and 284 Kendrick Road to 11/29/2025.
Second.
Okay, Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're ready for the next.
Okay, the following is a field change request at 70 Meadowview Road South, map 10D, parcel 16-S15 for Kyle and Patricia Lissack, DEP SE number 10-3668, proposed addition, proposed attached garage, and proposed reconstruction of deck with mitigation. Field change is requested to allow a walkout basement from the approved basement addition.
How are you?
Good. I'm Jim Gronsky. I'm the contractor at this site. When we were excavating, when we actually took down the existing family room, which had a 4-foot deep foundation, and then excavated for the full foundation that's on our new plan, it became evident to us that the grade had been raised previously when they put on the former addition. And now, after the excavation, we see that we have access for a nice walkout basement, partial walkout basement, I should say, not the whole back, but only about half the foundation we'd have open to allow access to put a door to get into the storage area of that basement.
Okay. I can't find it. Do you have that email, Elise? That was about the property? I'm not seeing it.
I will say the walkout is under an existing, or will be under the approved deck that's already been approved by this commission.
No, all right. I think one of the things that I had was, you haven't really given us, I mean, you've given us a bunch of photos, but I was out there, And of course, I can't walk all around because of the construction. And
Okay.
so it was hard to say where this door was going.
Okay. I have a new photo that wasn't in your packet because the packet was due to you guys on the 8th, and the foundation was done. So now I have a new photo if you would like to see it.
So you have you have a new photo?
Well, an additional photo to what I had.
And
It's showing the foundation that was just put in.
right, and we do have photos with the foundation. I just wasn't, sure, we don't have anything that shows exactly where the door is going. Maybe it was in here.
Isn't there a site,
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you have any photos showing the foundation.
isn't there a site plan from the original?
There's a site plan, but it didn't have that door on it.
Could-
Yeah.
Right, but the site.
Exactly.
All that is underneath the deck, the existing deck, or the new deck to be built.
Right, and
Okay.
since there was no new deck, I don't know. And I'll let if anybody else has questions, because I couldn't figure out where I was able to stand, where this door was exactly, we don't have a plan that shows where the door
I
is
have
going.
a picture showing the foundation that's now poured,
Right,
and I can identify to you where that,
right, and
doorway would
I
be.
saw the foundation that's poured.
right, okay.
But, normally you get a site plan or, something that will say, this is where we're going to place, in this much foundation, we're placing the door here or here,
Okay, because, well, when I talked to Paul,
Okay,
okay, because I asked him, I said, do we need to have a site
Right.
plan or anything? He indicated he didn't think so because it was underneath the existing deck.
Right,
Or
okay.
I should say
Well-
not the existing, but the deck that's already been
the
approved.
to-be-built deck.
Right,
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to meet you and the contractor. So what you're basically doing is you're cutting in a door in the concrete. You're cutting a doorway into the concrete. There's no patio, there's no nothing, right?
Right,
You're just
yeah,
cutting a
it's-
door in the concrete, but I did kind of explain that they're gonna want more information from you. Maybe a picture and also indicate where the door is gonna be, but I understand what you're saying. It's
I mean-
pretty cut forward. You're cutting the door into the existing foundation, and you're gonna have another door going.
yeah, I was going by what Paul had told me, that I didn't
Right.
need any further information except writing a letter and taking a couple pictures. So that's why I didn't provide any other information.
Plan.
Well, we have
So
the,
this is the approved site plan. So would you be able to, I mean, really, the only thing that matters is that when the person goes out to check for a certificate of compliance, that they know that that was approved and not.
Right.
So if you
Okay.
could just, is there some way of marking on the plan? so
On
we
that
have it?
plan now,
Not the
or-
one on here, but on a plan that you have that you could.
Well, I don't have the plans with me either. I mean, I have pictures, but I don't have any plans because I didn't,
What if you took some spray paint on the four corners of the door and took a picture of it where the door is gonna be,
There you go.
on the concrete? You
Okay.
paint the
Yeah.
four things where the door is gonna
I
be.
could do that. I mean, if you want, you can continue meeting. I can come back, because I'm only 5 minutes away, and pick up later this afternoon, at the end of your meeting, if that would help you guys.
Can we approve it with a picture coming if we're not really that concerned where the door is? That nothing's really happening there, they're just cutting.
I don't think we're struggling with, can this be approved? It's that we don't have something that shows when our agent goes out to make sure, when a COC is applied for, that the door's where it was supposed to be.
Okay.
That's all. So, as Eric said, I think we could approve it if you get us a picture. What we will do is, I'm sure Crystal can hold off issuing the field change and, well, we'll approve it, but you get us a picture.
Okay, but what do you want a picture of? So I understand, you want a floor plan of the drawing? You want, because on a site plan, it's not gonna be shown because
No.
it's underneath
No,
the deck.
we just told you,
No.
That doesn't help.
paint the four corners of the door on the
On the
concrete.
foundation.
And take a picture of it.
Okay, well, that's simple enough.
That's what we, that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I
we're
like. I
not
like
trying to
simple.
make it complicated. We're just, we need
Okay.
something that shows.
No?
Hello?
Just take a picture that we can see how far it is down from one of the corners.
Yeah, it's approximately 4 foot from the existing foundation. Okay, so, and it's only going to go another 6 feet maximum. So, which is less than half the length of the new foundation, which I believe was, actually, there's sort of like a diagram, I think. Oh, on the fifth picture, I think
Yeah.
that you have a picture that shows like a ladder laying on the ground.
Yes.
Footing there, and you see, did I take a photocopy of hopefully I took a photocopy of the one that I put my markings on this picture. Is there like a magic mark on your picture or
Yes.
not? Okay, that's showing the extent of the walkout part, but the door is going to be more right in front of that ladder.
Okay.
Okay, if you understand what I'm saying, because when I say it's extending, because we can't bring the dirt right up to the doorway anyway, it's going to be back a little bit. That's why I'm saying the extent is a little bit further away from where the door would be.
And
But
how big-
I will go back, mark the wall, and take some pictures, and do I take them upstairs to the office? Is that what you prefer?
Yes, please. How big is the door going to be?
Excuse me?
How wide is the door going to be?
A maximum of 6 feet. Okay, so it'd be just like a double door, just to allow them access to bring in like their patio furniture. They have kayaks because they have the slips down below that they can carry up through their steps, and so they could store stuff in the basement, And
No,
we
I-
weren't aware of that until we actually did the excavation, then said, whoa, look at this, surprise. So,
Yeah, no, it's certainly a very small change. It's
Yeah.
just when somebody's trying to make sure that what was supposed to be done, that the as-built meets what was approved, we need something.
I agree with that. I don't have any problem with that.
So I think we can approve this. So if we could have a motion, please?
Close the hearing.
No.
I move that we approve the field change request for 70 Meadowview Road South.
Second.
Okay, Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. You're all set.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's okay. I know that feeling of brain freeze.
Yeah. Okay, Catherine.
Okay, the following is a request for determination of applicability at 112 Inlet Road, map 14B, parcel C13, R-24-26 for Robert and Mary Bainbridge, construction of a 31 square foot building addition, removal of 22 square feet of walkways, 31 square feet of driveway, and installation of stormwater controls.
Aye.
Good afternoon. David Clark, Clark Engineering on behalf of the Bainbridges. I apologize if the narrative wasn't clear. I did see the email from
Crystal?
Crystal with your concerns. So the reason why we filed a request for determination is that 95+% of the project is outside your jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
There is where the building addition is going that's within your jurisdiction, there is a lower level to first floor level retaining wall that supports a patio right in that corner. So that entire area, except for maybe a foot and a half in the width, is either patio or retaining wall. And only 31 square feet of that addition is within the 50 to 100. Likewise, on the only other alteration really within your jurisdiction is the driveway. The architects are proposing a new parking court, and we're moving the driveway a little bit outside your jurisdiction, so there's a reduction there. So at the end of the day, there's actually a 22 square foot reduction in site coverage. They're still working on the landscape plan for the property. That's why one wasn't submitted with this. If you'd like to see some details of what's going in immediately adjacent to the driveway, we can provide that. Over on the addition side, there really isn't much vegetation between the walkway or the steps from the upper level down to the lower level that's on the south side of that addition. There might be some foundation plantings there, which obviously would have to be removed. But if you want a detail on that, we'd be happy to provide that too.
So, but you say, that with the addition, there's 31 square feet in the outer aura increase. And,
Well,
yeah, for the addition. Then you say, in the description for this, it says 22 square foot reduction of pavement in the outer aura is proposed. Now, that's still, I mean, it's minimal, but it's still 9 square feet increase.
There's no increase. The net result of this project is a 22 square foot reduction in site coverage from the 50 to 100. So the pavement, the removal of pavement is 31 square feet. And there's a reduction in the other hardscape, being the patio and whatnot. So,
Yeah, I guess where I struggled was, because it said, you have 2 sections for your description. It says, the second part just said, the applicants are also proposing to remove and reconstruct the existing asphalt driveway, a 22 square foot reduction of pavement within the
Oh,
outer
sorry.
aura is proposed. So I assumed that was the driveway.
Sorry. Yep.
That's where, and then you also have stormwater controls, which will also disturb an area that is within the 50 and
Right.
100.
Well, we were proposing the stormwater controls as mitigation, in that there are none now. And we thought that if we were moving the driveway, the commission would want to see us make an effort to control some of that runoff.
So also, I assume that in the driveway, the little, looks like, almost like a ladder, that's just a trench?
That's a trench drain.
Yeah, I assumed. So that's also catching the water, correct?
Well, the leach pit is there to accept water from the trench drain.
I'll let others, if they want to ask questions, ask anything they want, and then, go ahead.
You want to go, Jan? You have something?
Yeah, quick question. Quick question. The driveway is going to be redone in the same, in asphalt?
Yes. The upper parking court right now is gravel, and I believe they're going to keep that as gravel.
So that'll be
But-
gravel and asphalt?
Yes, yeah, so the driveway itself will be asphalt.
Okay, thank you.
When I went to the site, I was amazed that this building so high up this hill was even in our jurisdiction. I personally have no issues with it coming back with a planting plan.
Planting plan?
Way up there, in my opinion. I don't know about everybody else. And I mean, you have the resource area, and then you got to get across a paved road, and then you got to go up a cliff. So I think it's pretty minimal.
Yeah, the Bainbridges have owned this since 2008, and where you see the Coastal Conservancy District line that's on the east side of Inlet Road. That's where the floodplain was when they bought the place. And we had done a septic design for them then, so they've had the understanding since they've owned the property that none of their property was in a conservancy district or within conservation jurisdiction, because it wasn't at that time. But the floodplain change in 2014 dragged the property into your jurisdiction.
Wow.
I just have a quick,
Go ahead.
first off, I want to thank you that that was perfectly staked. I did all my visits this morning, and a couple of them weren't staked. One of them I had a hard time finding. So I really appreciate that yours was well marked. My only question as far as the planting plan, do they intend to redo that whole hillside?
Oh,
Or are
no.
they just going to mostly leave it alone?
No, they've been working on that since 2008, because I think it was a field at one time, or largely in grass. But the landscape plan's really going to deal with the backside of the house.
Okay.
Where the retaining wall and all
Gotcha.
that's going.
Thank you. Then I don't really have any concern about a planting plan for the front.
So I think we could approve this and say that the plantings have to be approved by the agent. I mean, it's such a small amount that will be planted to cover, well, you don't even have really an increase in coverage anyway, not the way I understood it originally. But I think if you'd like, then we could just say the agent could approve it.
For restoration, really, we're looking at where the leach pit's going, that's
Yeah.
100 square feet or so, and then the foundation backfilling, what's happening right there. So that would be great. I
I
appreciate that.
think we could do that. Yeah, so go ahead, Lise. Oh, and it's Catherine, am I correct, a positive? She said positive 4.
What's it for?
I don't know.
So it's technically a negative.
Catherine is
It's
positive.
Negative.
It's going to be a negative, and
Oh,
I had it up to determine which one it was. Let me see if I can pull that up really quickly.
I'm never good at this part.
3 is buffer zone, 2 is in the resource area. I've never heard of it before.
3 is buffer and 4 is
2 is
resource,
area.
so that'd be 2.
Yeah, I think it's a negative 2. Yes, negative 2 is if the area is subject to the act, but the activity will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area.
Yep. Okay, we'll do negative 2.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Negative 2.
Sounds good.
I move that we approve 112 Inlet Road as a negative 2 RDA with the stipulation that the agent approve the planting plan when available.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. All right, Catherine.
Okay, moving on to the notices of intent. There's a notice of intent at 98 Oyster Pond Furlong, map 13E, parcel 29-11A for Stephen A. and Haley G. Nadas, DEP SE number 10-3682, construction of a shore access catwalk. The applicant has requested a continuance to January 7th, 2025.
Great. Need a motion?
I move that we continue 98 Oyster Pond Furlong to January 7th, 2025.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, next one.
Okay, notice of intent at 0 Stage Harbor Road and 0 Morris Island, maps 12A3 and 13A3, parcels Dike 1 and Dike 2, for the Town of Chatham, Department of Natural Resources, DEP SC number 10-3693, temporary groins, veins, and beach nourishment.
Okay, hey, how are you?
Good afternoon, Ted Keon, Coast Resource Director. I'm going to be brief because I want to turn this over to our design engineer, John Ramsey, just in a minute here. I think it's safe to say that this is a unique and unusual project, but it's also safe to say we have a unique and unusual situation. Our dynamic outer beaches have been going through many changes over the years, and the last 5 or 6 or so has really been a drastic change, causing some drastic issues that we've been wrestling with. So we undertook a few years ago, through multiple coastal zone management and resiliency grants, a study through John's firm to address these issues that I'll let him explain very shortly. And we've come up with what we think is a very reasonable approach to deal with this. And I'm going to be very upfront and forward that I hope we never have to build this. But as I've said in many public forums, we don't want to have the changes that are happening out there progress to the point where we need to do this and then we don't have approvals in place in order to implement something. So this is really preparing the town for the future. And again, I hope we don't have to, implement the full nature of this project. But I'll let John, explain this. It's again, a unique situation and a unique project. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, so I'm John Ramsey from Sustainable Coastal Solutions, representing the town. And just to give us a start here, this is the photo from, I believe, 2020, and you can see the dredge working in Stage Harbor entrance there. Just shows you that when, after 2017, when the Fool's Cut became open, what ended up happening is there was a lot of sand and also a lot of tidal current came down across Morris Island, eroding Crescent Beach, and then also causing severe shoaling problems, which the town had been dealing with for the last several years. As Ted said, and I will repeat many times during this, we are hoping not to have to build this project. Certainly the erosion has slowed and the shoaling has slowed as well, but we certainly want to have something in place just in case we have to go forward and implement this. I do want to just give a little bit of history, just because it is important in this case. It's important to note back in the early 60s that the inlet was actually much further to the east. And so what ended up happening is the Army Corps of Engineers actually moved the inlet about 2,800 feet to the west, where we have it presently, and built the jetty as well. And what they end up doing is filling in the old inlet. So what the portion of Crescent Beach that's eroding now and is in potential breaching is actually not a historic barrier beach, but is actually just dredge spoil that the Army Corps placed there back in the late 60s. And offshore of that, they also built a timber pile jetty. And the reason why they did that is obviously to deflect currents, something similar to what we're looking at, but it also protected the dike shortly after they had it built. You still see the remnants of some of that. They did pull most of that, but there still are some piles out in the water that you see that were not pulled. And then all of this happened, obviously the outer beach has been going through its cycles of breaching, and we go back to 1991 or 1987 when we had the original breach, and then obviously the breach in 2007 changed things quite a bit, and then that lower portion of Nassau Beach that attached to the shoreline was breached in 2017, causing the problems we have now. And obviously we see the erosion, and you guys have had many projects in front of you along the east side of Morris Island that have, obviously there's been a tremendous amount of erosion. And a lot of that sand that's being eroded from there has been carried around the corner and towards Stage Harbor. And also those currents are very strong and kind of ripping in front of the Crescent Beach there and eroding that as well. This is just basically a series of photos from 2016. As you see the things progress, Fool's Cut open, going through 2019, and you see that movement of sand from west to east. You never see the sand going the other direction. One of the things that's very unique about this situation is the tide range in the Atlantic Ocean is over 8 feet. The tide range in Nantucket Sound is only a little over 4. So what we end up having is the currents are almost unidirectional, always going from east to west, and that's really dragging all the sand in one direction, which allowed us, going through this process, of actually thinking of this more of a river and not just an ocean going back and forth with the tides, but actually the currents going in one direction most of the time. And so just give you some numbers there, as the beach has been eroding there, this Crescent Beach, the red is the area that's eroding the fastest, and that's the area that had been the old inlet that was filled. At last measurements, we're losing up to 19 feet per year. That beach is eroding, and at its narrowest, it's less than 100 feet wide at this point. So you're looking at a pretty narrow system there, and there is concern that, if this continues to happen, that we're going to actually breach that and basically reopen the old inlet, but it's certainly going to create serious problems for the navigation interests and the Harbor of Safe Refuge at Stage Harbor. So one of the things, we do a lot of numerical analysis, but one of the things just to point out, the currents that are going along that shoreline, or at the time we were doing this analysis, were on the order of 2.5 knots going from east to west. So this is something that can easily pick up sand and transport it, but it also gets to the point where it's pretty dangerous as well. And those currents going in that direction are about 2 times stronger than the currents going the other direction. And they also occur for about 90% of the tidal cycle, where only 10% of the time the flow is going the other direction. So the picture on the bottom just shows you a typical view of what Crescent Beach looks like, with its basically vertical scarp along much of it as it continues to erode. So that's one of the things that is a critical driver here. We want to make sure we're preserving Crescent Beach, but also reducing that flow of sediment going towards Stage Harbor, which has cost the town several $1 million at this point to try to maintain, as well as the Army Corps coming in and having to dredge it more frequently. One thing I would like to point out that, and this is probably one of the important things to understand, is that this project isn't going to be needed forever, just like the old project that we had back in the 1960s. What we're really looking at, based on work by Graham Geis up at the Center for Coastal Studies, is that by around 2040-ish, we're likely to have this Fool's Cut closed off, and we will no longer have this area exposed. On the other hand, we've, as well as these predictions have gone, a lot of the predictions for the system it's slightly different than the way it happened historically last time. So again, we'd like to say it's going to be close to 2040. We just don't know. And so again, it goes to the caution of this project having something in place that we can install if something changes, if for some reason that breaches and we need to have to put these structures in to maintain safe navigation as well as preserve Crescent Beach. So we did a whole detailed modeling analysis, and I'm obviously not going to go through all of that, but I want to at least note that we went through this whole process of calibrating a numerical model to make sure that we could predict or to measure what happens now and be able to actually model the currents as they currently exist, and then we can use that tool to model a whole different set of scenarios and to see what effect they're going to have on the system. So that was the reason for putting this tool together, and I'll just, again, it was driven by pretty much a tidal model and developed for currents, and then also looking at sediment transport through a series of tidal cycles. So I'll just go and kind of play a movie to give you an idea. The arrows are the direction of the current. The magnitude is the length of the arrows. So one of the things you see is when it's coming in from the Atlantic Ocean, the arrows are a lot longer, meaning stronger currents, and they're all heading from east to west. And then when it reverses and goes back out, you see it's a much shorter time period, and the arrows are shorter. And you're telling us, again, it's that riverine situation, so we can sort of treat this as a river, unidirectional flow, and if we can basically guide flow away from the shoreline in one direction, we can prevent that area from eroding and likely turn it into an accretionary shoreline again. And so just a quick view from a couple snapshots from that movie. Maximum flood currents, and we're assuming flooding is coming from the ocean. In this case, on the bottom right, obviously you see that big, strong arrows, high currents. Again, if you look at that bottom right corner, you see 3 feet per second. That's the velocity that's needed, that's the length of the arrow needed to move very coarse sand. And so you see many of those arrows are a lot larger than that, meaning that this, obviously, all that shoaling that you see is moving from east to west. On the top left is when it's ebbing back out towards the ocean, and you see it's a much weaker currents. There are some areas where some sediments moved, but it's for a very short period of time during the tidal cycle. So it's very much dominated by this flood currents coming from the ocean. So we looked at several alternatives, and again, it's in the notice of intent and the MEPA filing that was included. I'm not going to go into those in details, but I just want to sort of give you guys the idea of all the things that we did look at. Obviously, no action is something that we looked at, and we obviously didn't see that as a viable solution. We certainly need Stage Harbor as part of, for the town, and it's critical for flood protection, et cetera, the barrier beach. So that was off the table. We looked at reorienting the channel. Really didn't provide what we needed as far as, preserving Crescent Beach. Inlet relocation, same problem. And inlet relocation would have been moving it over to where the Bend and Oyster River is. Obviously, it's something that would have huge environmental impacts that we really didn't even want to broach. Flow control structures, which I'll talk a little bit about, and then the same concept of flow control structures with nourishment. Because one of the things that we knew that we needed was to reestablish Crescent Beach. Because of all the erosion that's happened, we wanted it to return it to its pre-2017 conditions so that it could withstand some future hurricane and be able to provide that level of protection for the harbor going down the road. And so what ended up being the preferred alternative was these flow control structures, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes, but it's also with this beach nourishment. And so one of the things we did when we came up with that preferred alternative, we did more detailed bathymetry, looked at eelgrass again, all of those issues, and came up with the design that you'll see in your packet, et cetera. And then we updated the model to make sure, and put it into a very detailed analysis to make sure we understood potential scour at each of these flow control structures to make sure that we would be putting them into a depth that they needed to be put in at. And this is the kind of the detailed grid of the flow control structures. And basically what these structures look like, these are basically vertical sheet pile. There's a groin that connects to the land, and then there's a series of veins offshore. The reason why we're using sheet pile or proposing sheet pile is because it's temporary. It can be vibrated in and vibrated out. This is intended to be temporary structures. We want to be able to place them, but also remove them easily. And the one thing I will point out, what we're trying to go forward with permitting is the maximum array that we would ever put out. It's with the understanding, and I'll talk again a little bit about this, we have created like a placement area. So this is the initial placement based on what we know right now. As the conditions change in the future, we would never create something that's any bigger than this, and likely would be smaller, shorter, fewer veins, closer to the shoreline. But again, it's going to be dependent upon what the conditions are at the time, if this ever is needed. But again, this is just sort of the presentation of the worst case scenario. So that growing length is 640 feet. And then there's 11 veins, and each of those is on the order of 30 feet. So there'd be a series of sheet piles over 30 feet, and that's another 398 feet total. So you're looking at slightly over 1,000 feet of total structure. And again, temporary, meant to be put in for no more than about 15 years, worst case scenario. And so we also have this beach nourishment, and what the intent of the beach nourishment is to restore the shoreline to that pre-2017 conditions. And so on the left is the footprint of the beach nourishment above mean high water, just to return the shoreline where the mean high water shoreline was. Obviously, we do beach nourishment, as you see on the lower right. The footprint of that beach nourishment goes underwater. So that's the total footprint, the total coverage of the proposed nourishment. And that's 9.1 acres, 84,000 cubic yards. The intent here, again, it's unlikely, obviously, the town would probably not do that project as a one-off time project. They would do it as multiple projects, or they might not do the whole thing at all, but the veins themselves might trap quite a bit of that sand over time, and therefore the nourishment won't be required. But the intent is to bring that shoreline back out to where it was pre-2017. And the total coverage is 9.1 acres for that beach nourishment, for the resource area impacts. So I'm just going to go through a couple series of photos. The green line is the Monomoy National Wildlife Refuge boundary. When we were first looking at this, we certainly had vein options that were in the wildlife refuge. And, obviously, one of the things we wanted to try to attempt to do is keep it outside, and as long as that worked, we were happy with it. And that turned out that actually the best option was actually outside the wildlife refuge, so we were forced to do it. But I just wanted to include that on there, just so you're aware of where this project lies relative to the federal land. So this goes to 2019, and one of the things you see is that very pronounced channel in the near shore. Over time, as we're moving forward, one of the things you do start seeing is the buildup at the southeast corner of Morse Island, as that spit is starting to move out. And that is something that we're very cognizant of, and it is actually making the situation better. We still have pretty strong currents along Crescent Beach, but that is starting to slow them down. And as we move forward in time, you see that shoal get set up more and more, and obviously the Fool's Cut is narrowing as well. And again, through 2022, you see that quite pronounced. So as that continues, and that is continuing to grow, we're getting more comfortable that this may not be needed. But there is the concern that if that tip gets cut off the barrier spit again, and a major nor'easter comes through and knocks that shoal out, that we'll be back to where we were in 2019. So again, we want to make sure that we have this option available. So just throwing our project in comparison to where the Army Corps project is, or was, that's the original inlet relocation project in the, is that orange or yellow? My red-green colorblind is terrible. Orange. We're going to go with orange. Sorry. So you can see where they constructed the dike and where they constructed the new inlet, as well as their offshore structure that still has the piles in there. And that's relative to what we're installing, or what we're proposing to install. And one of the things you'll see is that what we're proposing is actually relatively small compared to what they did back in the 60s. But at the same time, we think it's going to accomplish what needed to be done, or what needs to be done to slow that current down. They were moving an entire inlet and needing to protect that while they were building that barrier beach. We basically are just trying to slow down the currents so that we can disrupt the sediment transport patterns along there, get some accretion, and reduce the amount of shoaling going into Stage Harbor entrance channel. So I did want to just talk about this placement zone concept. Ted and I and my engineers and modelers have had these discussions over the years that, it's great to put this in, but that's in a static condition. We know that this area is not static in any way. So one of the things we floated the idea of was having, through the MEPA process, was going and having this placement zone, being able to potentially move these structures. And again, the structure will never be have any more larger dimensions than what we're proposing, but we want to be able to move that structure within this zone if that's a better place. Because we've seen that shoal build out on the southeast corner of Morse Island. One of the things we kind of see is an S-curve of current set up. So that may be better to move the system further west. And again, before we did that, we would certainly be in front of you asking for permission to make sure you understood exactly what we are doing if we were choosing to alter that. So this wouldn't be, you wouldn't be permitting us to alter anything within the entire placement zone. It'd be trying to permit this project with the understanding if there are alterations that we would have to come back before all the regulators and make sure that they understand what we're doing. And again, these structures are meant to be done in a way and to a depth that can, where if they're in the water, we can place them by barge. Where they're on land, they can be placed from land, but it's meant to be vibrated in sheet pile, which is easy to remove. So we're not intending to cut anything off and leave it in place like the Army Corps did with their wood piles. So this is intended to be temporary, placed and removed when no longer needed. And that is certainly some of the conditions that we have been dealing with MEPA. They understand, and the state permit applications, that they understand that this is going to have removal requirements when it's no longer needed. I threw up the plans here just to make sure if you guys had any questions. These are the plans that are in the filing. This just shows the overall footprint of the beach nourishment with that zone. That just gives you an idea of the footprint. You also see the veins, the scale of the veins there. that basically the various sheets there of sheet pile groin and the 11 veins offshore. This is the beach profile for the, this is again, maximum beach profile that we would do. We're looking at typical of what Ted's group does for a lot of the beach nourishments here. We're 1 on 10 slope. We've worked closely with Amy Honig from Natural Heritage to make sure that they're understanding what we're trying to do, make sure the slopes are appropriate, but also make sure that when the temporary groin is placed, that we're placing it at an elevation that allows plovers to be able to walk around the upper end of the structure and not impede their progress along the beach. And I believe that you have a letter from them as well.
We do.
In your file. And then this is just the what the groin would look, or the groin would look like up there on the top with the beach nourishment, more with the slope more to scale, and just showing you that the top of the groin is actually below the elevation of the beach, again to allow any plovers walking along the beach and not to be impeded. And then just some details of how the structure would look. Again, it's just sheet pile. I'm going to show a picture in a couple minutes just to give you guys some scale idea of what this might look like from a visual, but the thing I'm going to show has wood piles, et cetera, with it. This would only be the steel sheeting. And then just to also for construction access for the beach nourishment aspect, if we are looking, and also the landward portion of the groin, we're looking at landing a barge at the tip in the Stage Harbor entrance, and then accessing the site along the fronting beach. And that would be for delivering the first part of the groin for sheet pile, and then also for the dredge pipe for any placement of beach nourishment material along the beach. And obviously this is not the kind of numbers you guys are typically used to seeing, but I just want to be upfront. But I mean, these are the impacts to coastal resource areas. Almost all of this is beach nourishment, so it really is just reestablishing. So you're basically your coastal beach. You're burying the existing coastal beach in the face of the dune. That's basically a vertical slope now. And then we are filling land under the ocean that had historically been coastal beach, but has been eroded away. And so now some of that is now land containing shellfish. We did have a letter from the shellfish warden as well, just to make sure that people understand that we are very well aware of the issues, and we know that offshore there's a soft shell climbing habitat as well. So this is that photograph I was talking about. So we would not have any of these wood type things, but I want people to understand that this is not going to be the prettiest structure if it's constructed. This is something, it is going to be just a couple feet above mean high water, but it is going to be made of steel, these steel sheet piles. As I said, it's going to be from both land and barge. The vein construction is all from barge. Again, don't reiterate too many times, temporary, but also likely if this is ever needed, it's likely going to be smaller than what we see. But that would be, we would do some analysis to determine what would need to be done if it ever is needed. And then it's the vibratory hammer to put it in and pull it out, so people aren't going to be listening to a impact hammer for months on end. So this would be pretty quiet to install it, and we are proposing to have navigation lighting on it to warn boaters. We're well aware of the Morris Island cut and people's desire to speed through there at incredibly high speeds, and maybe not the most intelligent times, but we are aware. So as alterations to currents and shoaling, we're going to this whole concept is to shift those currents further offshore. That will increase the shoaling both upstream and downstream. So it's kind of acts as a block upstream, almost like a groin, part of that is a groin, but also downstream, and it lowers the currents so that the sand that's in suspension will drop out. There is a potential to increase a bit of scour off the tip because we are going to be redirecting the currents a little bit, but based on the modeling, it looks negligible. And again, it would shift anybody boating obviously is not going to go right through the array. It's going to shift people to go offshore of it. Obviously there'd be warning signs on this. The array is spaced so somebody can squeeze a boat through there just because that's the way it is. I really am hoping people do not. And again, we're looking to have this no more than the next 15 to 20 years. I mean, we're hoping, again, we don't know, we're not anticipating doing it right away. And there doesn't seem to be a need for it right now, but if there ever is a need, that need would never last more than a 15 or 20-year timeframe because of the way the shoals shift here. And once we have, the outer beach grows past here, similar to back in the 50s, we get out of the situation, and then once you no longer have direct exposure of waves and currents to this area, obviously the structure is no longer needed and would be removed. And we had a couple visuals that we gave for the public meeting just so people can kind of get an idea of what this looks like. Again, this is not necessarily to scale, but it gives you an idea of how far these would stick offshore and what it looks like, that groin and the series of veins. This is from the southwest, looking up toward the northeast, and then looking in the opposite direction. But this is kind of general, give you an idea of what it looks like. And the light shaded blue is the underwater portion of the beach nourishment. The sand color is sand color, right? Okay. Sand color is the beach nourishment above mean high water. Kind of lastly, will the project be necessary? Because that's one of the things that we've talked with the town a lot about. It really does depend on how Nauset Beach acts offshore. It is breaking up similar to what people have suggested it will do, but not exactly the way we expected. And it really seems to be still storm-driven, so it really depends on frequency of storms as to how the system reacts. It has a major falling apart during a storm, and then you see what repairs over the next couple of years. So we're just going to have to take a look at it, but again, trying to get this in place just so we have it in our back pocket if it's ever needed is the idea. We're still monitoring that shoal continuing to build south of Morris Island, which is great. That really is helping out right now and lessening the need for this. The erosion of Crescent Beach has slowed, which is great. But again, it's not repairing itself. It's not growing. It's just the erosion is slowed. And so it's still at a narrow situation. Stage Harbor shoaling rate is decreased, hasn't shut off, but again, it's as it becomes more manageable, there's less of an impetus to spend the several $1 million you're going to need to build this. And then obviously we're trying to shift that tidal flow further south of the array, and again, 15 to 20 years. I don't want to overdo that. The placement zone is meant to give us flexibility. And again, it's not just flexibility in where we're placing it, but also flexibility in mainly coming to the idea that maybe we don't need as much structure and maybe be able to shorten it or have fewer veins. And then regardless of whether structures are needed, I just want, if from the beach nourishment standpoint, at some point the town's likely going to want to restore that beach back to its pre-2017 conditions just so it's stable. So even if this project isn't done, it's likely to, at least that portion of the project we likely will build at some point. But again, there's less of a need to do it imminently if that area shoals in. But again, to maintain that stability of that system, eventually that nourishment or this, if this project is built, the accretion, we do want to get that shoreline back to its pre-2017 conditions. And with that, that's just recent changes. So that's that growing shoal just to the south. If you're just looking straight south, Crescent Beach is on the top right. You can just see how that shoal, that's from last June, or year before June. But it's a good picture, close to lower tide, so you can see that shoal growing just off the south tip. That's continuing to grow, but you do see the currents are still coming around, but they're certainly not going right across the face of Crescent Beach at the velocity they were going at in 2019. So if that continues to grow and shoal in, we may not need this project, but we're keeping an eye on that. And with that, I can open up to questions.
Can you go back to the one, it's like 3 back, right before that? No, maybe even, yes. Will this project be necessary?
Yeah.
So what will determine if that you're going to do this. If any one of these changes,
No, I think we'll determine this. I mean, right now, it doesn't look like we would do it because I think things are manageable right now. We would probably at some point, and I don't want to put words in the town's mouth, but at some point, they're going to want to restore the beach if things continue to shoal up the way they are. And then we would not put the structure aspects in. I think what the idea is if in order to implement the structures, I think we would have to see this open up again and start creating the same problems we had. But we want to be able to be able to
Right.
build it quickly if that becomes necessary. But if things keep progressing the way they are, I don't think there's going to be any intention or any appetite for the town to spend that kind of money to try to maintain that. I don't know if you want to.
Yes, I agree with whatever he just said. The cost of this is obviously not small, but the cost of our dredging program is not small either. You know, the last few years have been, well, a lesser need. The Corps has been very good in the sense that they've had some funding to come in. If the Corps hadn't been here, the town's need for dredging would have been higher. But regardless, the infilling of the channel isn't anything close to what it was in that 2019, 2020 timeframe, where essentially the shoal ran across the whole channel, and we were in the throes of being cut off. That's not a good situation. If that situation or those conditions were to, reestablish through the further deterioration of South Beach, new wave energy, new current velocities, and all of a sudden the channel gets the channel of concern gets reestablished to where it was, then it's probably worth looking at this again and saying, you know what, the dredging needs are gonna go up big time, and the loss of Crescent Beach is a very dire situation. So those are the kind of situations that would dictate, all right, let's consider putting this or something very close to this configuration back in the system.
so really if we all of a sudden had to really dredge, that would be your drop off of we need to do this because there's so much dredging needed, it's
Well, the
filling in.
dredging and the Crescent Beach, even
Yeah.
if the dredging were to slow down, if Crescent Beach were being,
Okay,
substantially impacted, which, given its size right now, there's not a lot left,
no,
we would need to do something.
okay.
Because we don't want that to breach. That would not be a good scenario.
And what then determines if the structures can be removed or if they need to be moved to a different part of Crescent Beach?
Basically just continuing to monitor and see how it's performing and how the system is developing, and getting smart people like John's coastal processes modeling, saying, this is gonna go in the bad direction, we need to do something, or conversely, this is looking really good, let's start pulling some of these out.
And you can pull some out, you don't have to take everything out all at once?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And I will say that, for the actual full removal, I mean, when that Fool's Cut closes and Monomoy joins back up to the south end of Morris Island, I mean, obviously that would trigger us pulling all the structures because they really would no longer be needed.
So what triggers if we need beach nourishment in addition to this?
I mean, you could argue that triggers already happened.
Yeah,
So, if we get, if permits are in place, doing nourishment may be something we want to do regardless.
okay,
I think that's, again, I think it's self-evident that
yeah,
nourishment's not a bad thing. We don't want to put nourishment that's going to immediately get swept away and go into the channel. So there are other considerations that we would have before we do it, but nourishment as a standalone theoretically would be a good thing, last year. So,
okay. Go ahead, Janet.
I just wanted to jump in because I have some really foundational questions. And you're quite right that since the Fool's Break, we've been learning a lot more about channel flows, both directional and volumetric, and how those things change quickly. So what I wanted to ask about is I understand that the flow coming east to west is much stronger. It's much more persistent than going the other way. But we also have learned over the last years that, in general, the current flow along the south coast from Harwich into Chatham is west to east, which is why those groins were put in over time in the jetties and all the problems that they've caused. Where do those two flows meet, and what happens at that point?
So it's not necessarily a meeting of flows. So if you look at the west to east on the south shore of the Cape, that's really a long-term wave direction, not necessarily anything to do with the currents themselves, but actually waves moving the sand along the shore.
Okay,
This is really a kind of a unique problem. It's almost 100% just tidal current driven.
okay.
It's not waves driving it. So there's no magic spot, but I will say that you get to Harding's Beach and that's where the transport seems to kind of be a little bit both ways. And one of them's, it's kind of where the currents stop dominating and the waves start taking over right there at Harding's Beach.
So the current slows down enough at that point where the waves can begin
Right,
to
correct.
exert some dominance
It's,
of that?
it's not readily obvious on this photo, but in the lower one, right about there,
That's where so that's a large tidal flat area, right?
and
That
there's a bar
is
that's
a
set up.
bar that comes out that's exposed at low
That's
tide.
my assumption.
And you have and you see
Oh,
the
yeah.
ridges.
I knew
Okay,
Mark
yeah.
would,
That's where the
Oh, sure.
currents have slowed down, and now the wave dominated.
So when you
span.
walk out on that at low tide, you can see and feel the flow coming from both directions.
I mean, you'll see that, you'll feel the tidal currents coming from one direction, but you'll also have the waves kind of
Interesting.
pushing you the other,
That
right?
explains that, okay. So the groin and the veins is designed to redirect both the current flow and the sediment transport, both?
It's intended to redirect the current flow mainly. In the sediment transport, it ends up slowing down the currents as well, so the sediment drops out. So think of it that way. Those veins are, even though they're redirecting the currents, they're also, creating turbulence that just kind of settles. So it's, if you think of it as almost like a sand fence in a way, where the wind's blowing
Yep.
through and it's dropping it
Yep.
out on the other side. So
That
might
makes
be-
sense on the veins, but the groin is a solid
The
structure.
groin is intended to redirect the flow
So
away
the
from.
flow is going to hit that and then go off in a southwesterly
Correct.
direction?
Yep.
And what are the knock-on effects of that?
I mean, the knock-on effects, if we weren't doing nourishment, there might be some concerns of downdrift erosion, although we don't really, because it's being eroded so badly now, that's a minor effect compared to what the structure impact is. But we are proposing nourishment there for a reason, because that will be a spot where the currents are very slow, and so we can place nourishment and it will work. And so the idea is when when the currents are slow enough and we have that whole area blocked, then we can pull the whole structure. And so the long-term effect will be nothing.
Okay.
And
Well-
if I can add, on the shadow side, the west side of this hard structure, you're basically now removing the primary driving force, which is the current, and you're now allowing it to be exposed to that other force we were just talking about, the southwest predominant winds. There may be some accretionary movement of sediments in that shadow zone.
Okay. So, but on the eastern side of the groin, I noticed that the groin cuts through the nourishment area. So why wouldn't the nourishment that's placed on the eastern side of that be washed away by the current coming through and turning?
Well, the reason why we have the combination of the groin and the veins, so the veins are gonna slow down the currents, not just where they are, but they end up slowing down, they end up building up an upstream slowdown. So it's basically gonna be redirecting the currents so they go further offshore. So the whole system will work that way. So we're not going to, right now, we want that groin piece in there just so we have a shoreline connection. If we put these veins all the way to shore, we end up, because each of these veins kind of creates its own scour hole because it's a lot of turbulence. So we don't want to put them right up against the shoreline because we'd be eroding, creating turbulence right up against the beach.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of carry that effect further offshore. And that's
And-
why you see it at the angle that it's at as well.
Right, and the groin, because of the way it's angled, won't cause any kind of turbulent action as the current hits that
Correct.
solid structure.
Right.
It'll just be gently turned.
Hopefully gently turning it. At least
Okay,
that's
well,
what's being shown.
That's beautiful. All right, thank you. That's it for the moment. I have a couple more.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Eric.
Question I had, well, yeah, I mean, what can happen will happen, who knows? But if it gets partially buried, wouldn't you just leave it? I mean, wouldn't it, what would the disturbance and the cost of excavating, like, what if it's buried, or half of it's buried under 4 feet of sediment? Would you bother excavating and removing it, or just leave it?
Well, I mean, basically, from an environmental standpoint, we want to remove it. I mean, I understand what you're saying, because as the beach erodes, I see some of the old dredge equipment that was used to build the beach falling out. So I'm aware that, so there's one thing to be said for, at some point, it's going to show up. So it's better to remove it. I mean, and that's what somebody had asked us early on was, well, can't you just cut these off? And it's like, well, that's what the Army Corps did, and they've kind of left some navigation hazards out there for people. So we wanted to make this so it could be taken out. And again, it's more from an environmental standpoint, because 50 years from now, if somebody's, when this beach changes form or something, somebody's going to see a rusted piece of sheet pile and wonder why it was out there, and what a hazard it is, because it might end up being in the water at that point. So we really do want to get, once these are no longer needed, we do want to remove these.
Just a quick question, what are those cables that are out there? Do you know, from the history of that, as you walk in that beach?
That's
and
part of the
there's
dredge
huge-
equipment. So that is part of the old.
Throw it up on the beach and bury it and walk.
Yeah,
Oh, I
so the
see, yeah.
cables are part of the crane or the derrick.
Oh.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's,
A little bit of history, a little bit of history laying around for you to look at.
there is.
All
Yeah.
right, thank you.
Elise? Anything?
Not yet.
Okay. Janet?
Just,
Cheryl?
I'll note that, I noticed that you addressed performance standards for the coastal and barrier beach, and but not the land under the ocean or the coastal dune. Or, they're defined as what those are, the
Right.
resource areas, but the performance standards are not listed or addressed in the way that the project meets them.
Okay, I'll have to check that. Okay.
Yep, that just is a.
I don't know if that got deleted somehow.
Are you still thinking about putting lighting on this, on these
We are,
structures?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just hazard lighting of some
Hazard
sort?
lighting right now, we, through the process, we're going to need to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers, and likely we're going to be directed to the Coast Guard as well. So we'll have to determine what level of lighting is necessary.
Okay.
My a caveat to that is, as we all know, this is an active navigation area for the right tides, the right vessels, et cetera. There may be conditions in the near future where navigation is naturally not going to be able to happen there, but we still may need this structure.
Right.
Not to say we wouldn't want these, things lit, but navigation is going to get impacted here through natural processes. It's happening now.
Right.
I can't tell you that this will be, if we didn't do this, would navigation be able to continue for 2 more years or 10 more years? I have no idea, but I don't think it's going to be the way people are expecting it, at some point in the future.
Two quick questions. So you're asking for approval for the nourishment down below mean low water to a depth of up to negative 13.2 feet?
That might be that's probably the deepest that we have surveyed. It's probably shallower now, but yes.
Okay. And what prevents that from being taken back away by nature?
The nourishment?
Yeah.
I mean, well, the.
At that depth, at that far out and under?
At that depth, I mean, it's basically the structure array. If it were all done now, that structure array slows down the current, so it's not taken away. So, they need to go hand in hand if we are under current conditions. But if the currents slow down more, we can look at that, and then the nourishment could be placed without the structures if things have slowed down enough.
Right, so the contemplation is that some nourishment, at least higher up, could be done just to begin the process of building back the beach area, but you wouldn't be nourishing down into the depths below mean low unless you were going to do the structures, the veins.
Not necessarily. So I think what it has more to do with, so if like the Fool's Cut closes or gets close to closing, you can do the full nourishment, and because we don't really have any tidal currents that are going to be driving that sand away. So you can do the full nourishment. Right now, the way the conditions are, and maybe it's more like 2019, 2020, you saw the vertical scarp. I wouldn't want to put any beach nourishment on that because it's just going to be immediately taken away. So it's sort of it's a chicken or egg thing. I mean, we have to look at what conditions are needed. But as Ted has mentioned, things have slowed down right now. We're feeling pretty good. But if things open up again, we're going to want to do probably both things, nourishment and the vein placement. But again, I know this is kind of an odd thing for Conservation Commission to try to, because this is a hard thing, because we're asking for permission for the entire project because,
Right.
in case it's needed. And I think that the thing with just doing nourishment, I wouldn't recommend that nourishment be placed now,
Right.
because I think it would be swept away, even at the upper part.
Right. But you're asking for permit for a little bit of a blank check, depending upon how conditions change. And we like specificity. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to structure an order that would basically approve the whole concept and the zone area, but provide us with specificity if and when some point is reached where you want to move forward with some aspect of this, and so that the actual specifications of what's going to be happening, the size, the location, the volume, all of that, are brought in before the action happens.
I mean, that's not unlike, to some extent, our existing dredge permits,
That's
where we
what I was thinking
Exactly.
about. Yep.
Yeah.
zone of potential dredging, zone of potential veins.
And we have that
whatever.
structured the same way, so each dredge project, you do come in.
We
with-
don't come to you
Right.
necessarily.
No, you
We
go
go
to
through
the
the
agent
agent to let
with the-
them
with the
know,
spec-
hey, we're doing this,
specifications.
not here anymore, we're gonna bounce it over here because this is the better
Right, and then
place.
the agent makes the determination of whether
Right.
to report to us and ask you guys to come in.
For something like this,
a hearing.
I mean, it may require coming before you folks as well, just
Mm-hmm.
to, all right, we're ready to do this, and this is the level that we're proposing to do.
Yep.
I can see that being a very reasonable, given the nature of this project.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, one last one. Eelgrass habitat survey, is that that's a requirement of, I forget whose letter I was looking at, but,
Yeah.
It is.
that-
So what, our suggestion on that is to do an eelgrass survey immediately before we anticipate doing the project,
okay.
And-
Any
and-
part of it?
any part of it.
Okay, so that'll be an early activity before any other thing.
Right, so it'd be a pre-construction survey to make sure that we're avoiding eelgrass and not, obviously, we have if eelgrass is growing, I don't think the currents are strong enough to need the veins, so.
Probably not. It's a good thing.
So it's a good
eelgrass is
thing.
there.
And some of the eelgrass that had been out there is probably under 6 feet of sand right now, similar to other areas in Chatham Harbor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
It looks like Lauren, go ahead, from Chatham Conservation.
Foundation.
Yeah, Foundation, sorry. I should have said that. We're not hearing you. If you're on mute, Lauren. Well, we can't.
I know perhaps
What she's,
her interest,
yeah,
because she was appropriately made aware that the original location of the veins, the groin portion that attached to land, was actually over the line into their property. We looked at that, it was, again, based on the conditions, we were, physical conditions out there. John moved the groin over onto the town land, so it no longer is the physical structure, the hard structure is on their property. And then they did acknowledge that the breach nourishment would be on their portion of property, and they acknowledged that they were not opposed to that. I don't know that that's what she was gonna speak on, but I knew that that was an issue.
she,
Ma-
oh, you can, and
Madam Chair, do you want me to read the chat? Because she says
I
she
was-
can't unmute.
sure, I was just about to. Go ahead.
Okay, she says that the slide that shows alternative number 5 does not represent CCF property lines. Can the placement zone be adjusted to remove it from CCF property? Also, the following slide, permitting plans, again, does not show CCF property lines, and the project is shown going up to the Monomoy property line.
I'm not sure I followed that all.
So
Alternative number 5 does not represent CCF property lines. Placement zone be adjusted to remove it.
And so the project itself, the groin does go onto town property. If you look at this permitting plan, you can see
I don't know where lines are.
the property line is that zigzag there. But it is off their property. It's about 5 feet off their property right now.
Okay.
The one thing I will say, we certainly can move the placement zone to make sure that that placement zone is slid to the west to make sure, and certainly that could be conditioned, that no structure could be, the groin cannot be placed on Chatham Conservation Foundation property. That's fine. I mean, that was the intent.
Okay.
I apologize for not modifying the placement zone. But offshore, I'd like to leave the placement zone so that if the veins need to be pulled further east, it's not on their property, it's in state
Right.
tidelands. But, but certainly the groin itself we'll make sure is not on Chatham Conservation Foundation property.
Great, thank you. Lauren, I hope that answers everything for you. Anybody else? Cheryl, anybody? Eric, anything else? I think this can go to an order. I mean, it doesn't seem we have anything that we're changing. It's going to take a while to write this order. Could we have a few weeks? I mean, you're not
Yeah, no.
in any rush.
And we're happy to help with that order.
Thank you.
Right, we'll come to you for the help on the performance standards, because there are some that are a little tricky about circulation and turbidity and stuff like that need to be addressed in some way.
Right. But I think trying to figure out what's a reasonable amount of time to give us to get this done.
For other permitting.
No.
Could we
Correct, that's not-
even go to December 4th? That gives us a
It's
month.
fine with us.
I think, that gives us a month, because there's a holiday in there and
That's
everything,
fine.
to really hammer it out and share with you and come up with what we really do need to do. So I think we can go to an order and we'll do it for December.
Okay. I move that we continue Zero Stage Harbor Crescent Beach to December 4th, 2024 for an order of conditions.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. So we will see you December
good.
4th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much for the presentation, and it's complicated, I know. All right, Catherine, we're ready for the next.
Okay, we have a notice of intent at 217 Woodland Way, map 11K, parcel HC 125 for John and Paul Pulowski, DEP, SE number 10-3702, construction of a swimming pool and patio within the buffer zone to a coastal bank. The applicant has requested to continue to November 6, 2024.
Okay, so we need a motion.
I move that we continue 217 Woodland Way to November 6th, 2024.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, next one.
Okay, notice of intent at 170 Vineyard Avenue, map 10D, parcel 4-D114 for David Briggs, DEP SE number 10-3703, proposed raise and replacement of single-family dwelling.
Do we? Ah, there we go. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, my name is Hannah Raditz, wetland scientist with BSC. I'll go ahead and share the plan, if that's okay.
Sure.
Right. It's a little cut off, but I can move it around as I discuss. So quickly, a summary of the project. This is a notice of intent application on behalf of David Briggs for the raise and replacement of a single-family dwelling. The footprint of the dwelling, as you can see, sort of overlaps with what is proposed and is roughly the same dimensions, with some subtractions of the dwelling size for a deck on the front and on the back, as well as access stairways for these structures. For the resource areas on this site, there's land subject to coastal storm flowage, which has sort of a strange wiggly buffer on this site, as well as down here in the corner. And proposed impacts to this resource area have more to do with excavation, removing of certain features, and expansion of certain features on the house and utilities, mainly septic, the sewer connection, and these stormwater features. There's also a 100-foot buffer zone to BVW. This is associated with a pond to the west of the site. This is an inland pond that I believe is unnamed. And there's a very, very narrow vegetated border to this pond, which is the reason why we didn't submit BVW data forms. Instead, we submitted a delineation letter. There is salt marsh on the far side of Vineyard Ave to the east of the site, but the buffer just barely grazes, as well as the edge of the freshwater buffer at the edge of that wetland. So that's not so applicable. However, as you can see, we are still going to propose sediment controls on that corner of the site, as well as around the rest of the lot at the limit of work. Getting back into what's proposed, so as I mentioned, this is the raise and replacement of a single-family dwelling with associated utility work. This site will be tied into the sewer system, so the existing septic will be disposed of as is typically done, being pumped, filled with sand, crushed, and removed from the site. And then the connection line to the sewer established, as well as I mentioned earlier, connections to stormwater control connected to roof drains from the various portions of the dwelling on this side, to the north and to the south as well. The driveway will be repositioned. It's a little hard to see, but as you can see, the existing gravel driveway is along here, and this portion that continues into the back portion of the lot will just be removed and repositioned so that it matches up with the drive under slab garage. For this site, it's largely maintained lawn and cleared areas, so there's not going to be any proposed removal of native vegetation. The only impacts to resource areas on this site are 46 square feet of impacts associated with this raised stairway to the back deck, and 397 square feet of impacts to land subject to coastal storm flowage associated with excavation for installation of utilities up here. For these impacts, we are proposing 400 square feet of native vegetated plantings to be back here. This will consist of shrubs. We have proposed on the site highbush blueberry, sweet pepper bush, and arrowwood, which match the characteristics of this site, being freshwater but sort of upland of the resource areas. We believe this portion of the site will be shaded and wet enough to support these shrub species. There's no proposed changes to grade. Excavation obviously will be required for the installation of the dwelling, but the intention is to reestablish any changes in grade to the site following construction. This will be done with any clean fill that matches the soil characteristics of the site, stabilized with grass seed, and the sediment controls, which are at the limit of work, will remain in place until the project is complete and the site is fully stabilized. I believe that is everything important. So I'll just turn it over to the Conservation Commission for their questions.
I do have a question about, I guess, the plan that you provided to ZBA includes a retaining wall along the driveway, and I don't know, it seems their plans seem to be different than our plans. Is that correct?
That is something I would have to check with our survey on. From my understanding, I wasn't involved with the ZBA filing, but I will confirm with him to make sure that what's proposed on the ZBA plan matches what we've brought in front of you.
Okay, thank you. And I know you say you've said what plantings are going in and where they're going, but normally we get one that sort of shows the plantings going in that area, and how it's going to be set up. We didn't get that, so I'm just curious why you didn't think we needed to have that.
We can revise the plan to have it show where the shrubs are within the planting area.
Okay, and in the backyard, there's a shed. Now, looks like from the plan that you provided that it's not in the property. Is that correct? It's painted and everything to look like it belongs with the house. And so I'm just curious about that shed and if it's permitted or what.
Okay. Yeah, I will have to check back in with the head of survey for that answer.
Thank you. And when this is done, the area that is within our jurisdiction, I'm assuming you're going to be putting some lawn in, am I correct?
The idea is to maintain what's currently there. So any lawn that's within that corner will be taken out for the planting area and then lawn planted up to the edge of that planting area.
Yeah, it kind of isn't really lawn right now. It's like, and I know the driveway's out of our jurisdiction, but I couldn't find gravel in that driveway when I parked. It's it's pretty grown over, but and I honestly, yes, I know it's grass, but it's like a foot tall, so it doesn't seem like it's decent grass. So it would be nice to know in case what will be going there. I'm going to leave it up to others. Go ahead, Elise.
Is there any tree removal planned for this property? There seem to be quite a few interesting trees on the lot.
I don't believe that any tree removal is proposed. It's definitely difficult with as you can see, with the boundary of the lot and where, these cleared areas are back here in the shed, to determine like where trees are. But it's my understanding that any trees on this site had been located and none will need to be removed for any of the site work or the construction work.
There seemed to be a couple of trees that looked, stumps anyway, that looked fairly recent back to when you walked all the way to the back to the road that's behind this property. And one of them was a much older cut than the other two. So I would appreciate confirmation that the tree work is non-existent for this particular project.
Understood.
Cheryl?
It isn't, they do show that there's corner bounds for this property
Yeah.
line and that the shed's on the other side. And
I know.
most of the cutting you're talking about is on this property that seems to be owned by Oyster River Hills Association.
Yeah, it's
Or they
just,
are. But it does appear that they've been using it because there's debris there.
oh, yeah.
But,
And
but I'm
the
not sure
shed's,
we get to regulate that.
the shed looks identical to the
Yeah.
house. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm just questioning
Right.
if it truly,
But the
who
corner,
owns it?
yeah, the corner
Who
bounds are
truly
there,
owns
so
it?
the property lines are pretty clearly delineated. I just don't know who owns behind and who gets to use it.
Go ahead, anybody?
Yeah,
Eric?
well, for what our jurisdictions, it's pretty minimal, this project. You know, that shed can be used as mitigation too. I don't know what size the shed is, but
How?
technically it can be used as mitigation.
How?
Well, because of the square footage of the shed? No? I thought.
No,
Oh, you can't? No.
no. You mean if you took it out?
Yeah,
Or-
doesn't it account
I
for,
mean, if
it's a
they-
pre-existing and it's a shed, can't it be used as mitigation, the square footage of it?
Not,
If it's on their property.
yeah. And
May not
if
be
it
on their
was permitted when it was put in,
So their options are to just leave it.
yeah. Yeah, I just, if they actually own it, I'd love to know if it's permitted.
Well, they don't own it anymore because it's a new owner, right?
Right, but if the property owns,
Oh,
If it's part of the property.
if it's part of the property.
It doesn't look like it.
It doesn't.
Mounds don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, when I was there, it looked like it belonged
They've been
with the
using it
house.
Like it feels like it's just right
Yeah.
there.
Sounds like it might be a long-term use that was either allowed or ignored by the Oyster River, who?
Whatever.
Yeah, association.
Yeah,
things were different back in the day, right?
that's true.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think this plan looks fine, because you only have your staircase that we're really looking at, and you've planted
There's
plants that make
FEMA
sense.
area on the other side.
Yep, it's the flood zone.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
the floods.
I'm just happy
Anybody
to see
else?
a new development
Yeah.
proposal that doesn't include a swimming pool.
Yes.
Haven't seen one in a long time.
Janet, do you have anything?
Nope, got it all.
Okay.
I just want to say one thing.
yeah.
It was lovely how well staked it was. I really did go places today that I was really frustrated, so I was grateful that this one was staked.
Okay, we do have a
I'm
hand
glad
up.
to hear it. We haven't had too many projects in front of you lately, but I made sure our survey staff reviewed the checklist that's included, so I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear they did their job.
That's what I was-
I appreciate it.
And we do have a hand up. It's Peter Van Ams something, so go ahead.
Hi, this is Peter Van Amsen. I live at 58 Horseshoe Lane. 58 Horseshoe Lane is also within the Oyster River Hills Association. The people that own that little strip of land between the road and the back of the lot. I guess the west side of the lot. I just want to comment, if it's okay, on kind of the state of maintenance of the property since the new owner took ownership. It's essentially been neglected for,
Yes.
I think, a couple of years since Phyllis Towson, the prior owner, moved out and the property was sold by her state. I don't know the history of the shed. I was involved in the process of hiring a surveyor to stake the association property, and it is, at least from our view, pretty clear that shed is on association property. It may have been used by Phyllis and her husband, Whit, and her family before then, but it's not theirs.
Okay.
My general comment is just that, I would hope that everyone really is on top of the new owner, and as this project proceeds, at least my recent experience with this owner has been that he has been very careful and very mindful of the concerns that neighbors have had. So anyway, that's really all I have to add. Hasn't
Yes.
been a great neighbor.
So your concerns are unfortunately not things that we necessarily address. We take care of the area that's within Conservation Commission's purview, which is up to 100 feet from the wetlands or any water. So I appreciate, and yes, it is in disrepair, but most of the property we do not have jurisdiction over, just so that you're aware, but we are very diligent about the part that we do have jurisdiction for. And I thank you for your
Noted.
comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody have anything else?
I have one more thing to add.
Go ahead, Eric.
The wildlife didn't mind it in disrepair, so.
No, I'm sure they didn't. So,
Can I add one more comment on the wildlife?
sure.
So the prior owner used to feed the wildlife,
Feed?
including
Yes.
sort of feed, yes, including feeding coyotes and raccoons, which, you know, I don't know if there's a law against it, but it's certainly not good practice in terms of promoting the welfare of the animals. So
I think that was a long time ago.
Thank you.
Well, those passed away about 2 years ago, so it was about 2 change years ago. It
Yeah.
was when
Thank you.
Laura, her daughter, was there.
So we just need a little more detail, I think, on your planting. And seems like we can go to an order. Can you get us something with some more detail?
Yep, we can plan to meet next week's submission deadline. That would be November or October 30th or 31st for revised materials.
Yes, for the November 5th, are you saying?
Yeah, for the November 5th hearing. Or 6th, is it?
6th.
Yeah, 6th.
Oh, I'm on the wrong year. I've got the 2025. Okay,
Could've
the
fooled me.
November 6th. I guess we can probably get that done by November 6th. I think so. So I think we could go to an order for November 6th.
And you wanted to be sure the plans were the same as zoning got.
Yeah, but, well, actually, and
Zoning's
you
12
are seeing
12/5.
zoning December 5th, correct?
I am not sure of that date, but again, I can confirm with survey.
So maybe, since, well, they tell us you're being heard, zoning told us you're being heard on December 5th. So how about we do for December 11th? Since then you will have been heard by zoning, you'll have time to rectify between what the plan that was given to zoning versus us. And we'll know if zoning had any concerns or changes before we actually draft an order. Does that sound
That sounds
okay?
reasonable to me. Yes, it does.
Okay, then December 11th.
I move that we continue 170 Vineyard Avenue to December 11th, 2024 for an order of conditions.
Second?
Okay, Paul?
Aye.
Janet? Aye. Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, so we'll see you
Thank you.
the 11th, but if you could get in the new plans, that would be terrific. The sooner the better.
Yep, understood. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. All right, Catherine, next.
Okay, notice of intent at parcel H13, Captain Knowles Way, map 11C, parcel H13, for Minglewood Homes Incorporated, DEP SE number 10-3698, construction of a dwelling within the riverfront area in the buffer zone to a coastal bank, and construction of a swimming pool within the buffer zone to a coastal bank.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering. On behalf of Minglewood, Tim Smith is in the audience from Minglewood, and there's Jen. So we made some changes since the last time, per the request of the commission. We eliminated that wall off the northeast corner of the house.
Thank you.
We shifted the gate so that doesn't interfere with the tree off the northwest corner of the house. We added a retaining wall along the driveway to act as kind of like a barrel block and save that large oak tree. Those are the fundamental changes on the site plan, and Jen is here to talk about everything else. Well, almost everything.
Okay, hey, Jen.
Afternoon, everyone. Jen Crawford, Crawford Land Management. So the items that we were able to revise on our plan, we did extrapolate the rest of that 200-foot stream buffer, so the entire center island of that private road was in there. So we provided more information for you on that piece of it. Unfortunately, all of the native trees that we inventoried in there are basically right along the edge of the pavement almost, and the I don't know if it's a sycamore or a Norway maple, but the maple that's growing pretty much dead center in it is an invasive species. So that is just a wonderful, happy coincidence. But we did provide you with specifications to replant that center island with 3 native trees in the middle, and then a smattering of smaller shrubs so that the visibility wouldn't be blocked, and then to keep those edges all with that meadow mix. So that was the additions that we provided for the center island. We did add onto our plan a line along with a note along the mitigation area for the split rail fence. We also added a note for the transition between the more, we'll call it formalized lawn area to the meadow areas for that steel edging that you had asked, make sure it gets on our plans. So we did that. We, I think, made any updates as David outlined to trees to be saved, and updated all of our tree schedule and tree replacement schedule according to what happened between the center island then in conjunction with what was happening within the limit of work. I believe I think that wraps up the revisions that we needed to make to our plans. Dylan, if I'm forgetting anything, chime in. But with that, I will be quiet and let you ask questions.
Can I just?
No, if you'd please we usually have the commissioners go, and then we entertain any questions, comments from anybody else. Thanks. Did anybody else, any of your representatives, Ian, did you want to speak at all, or you want us to just go to questions and comments?
I think just going to questions and comments is great.
Okay. Well, my first comment, Jen, is the tree removal plan. They're all still marked as being removed.
There's no change.
There's no change, everything's still being removed. Which I love, the retaining wall was pulled back, I think, but 4, 5, 3, there's so many, 28, they're all still being removed.
So those are items that when, honestly, they're not necessarily up to me, so to speak, with the tree removal plan. They are necessitated by the construction and the construction methodologies that are put in place. So I believe that Tim and David went through everything, and if there was a way that those could be avoided or that things could be pulled back, then we did that, and we made those changes in conjunction with the team. In terms of 4 and 5, I don't know if I have any specific comments related to those 2 trees. I believe that they are, actually, is Tim there with you in person?
Yes, he is.
He is.
You were very nice about how you did that, I'll have to say.
Well, I think you have a better handle on the, on the construction methodology and on that particular area, and the reason why you still felt that we needed to, be able to take those, why those needed to be taken out. My role is less on the tree removal side and more on the how are we mitigating for it side.
All right, but and Tim, I'll let you speak, but one of the things is that the tree removal plan has to be modified based off of whatever is agreed upon. So right now, everything is still being removed.
Right, well, with the foundation, we have to have an overdig there, we gotta work around the building. Those 3 trees that we removed, the stone wall, are very small trees. They're only 3-inch in diameter, they're a couple of scraggly a little pine and a couple of little oaks. So they have to come out of the way, or we can't, they're in our way there to be able to do this project. On the front side here, with the trees, we put that retaining wall into and change the grading to protect some trees out on that aspect too. So we're trying to do everything you're asking for, but I gotta be able to work around the site. to do this.
I
And I've got 3 or
understand.
4 trees that I have to take that are pretty small, and we'll replant the way that you require us to replant them and mitigate.
Right, but I'm not seeing any trees were removed from the tree removal plan. So,
They were. They were. So like, for instance, on the plan that's on the screen right now, that 12.5-inch black oak where the small retaining wall was added to protect the root zone. So that was removed from our tree removal plan, so to speak, because now it's existing and remaining. The difference, there weren't actually that many differences in the numbers, and that's because of that center island area. Because unfortunately, we added
Well, yeah.
trees to the center island because now we have that between the 100 and 200 foot buffer, and that's where those trees around the edges came into place. So we included that on our tree inventory plan. So even though there were a couple less from the main portion of the property, we did have to add a couple more because of
Right.
the center island. So the overall numbers maybe didn't change or didn't change a whole lot, but that might be an explanation as to why.
I guess maybe I was hoping to see those still in the plan that are being saved and specified as saved rather than being removed, but okay. I'm still not real sure I understand why some of these, black oak, number 28, it's in the middle of what's marked as a naturalized area, just be seeded with meadow mix, and yet it's being removed. And it seems pretty far away from your foundation and all of that. And I understand you do have to have a hole bigger than what the house is and all of that. You know, even the circle, I know you said number 44, the one in the middle had to be removed. It's a maple, and it has to be removed because it's not native,
Well,
or?
that's why we're removing it, because it's not native. I'd keep it in there. It's a beautiful tree.
Yeah, I mean, I just.
If you're
I
okay with
think
it being
it's-
left in there as a non-native.
It's a pretty big tree. It's 10 and a half inches,
We
you
were
know.
just taking it out because it was a non-native.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I get taking things out that aren't native, but, you know, at some point you kind of go,
With that tree, what is that tree gonna do that's gonna be bad for the environment, right?
exactly, and it's big.
Okay.
So, I mean, okay. And then I had down, there was going to be a second limit of work,
Oh, I just-
and I don't know, I don't remember why I had that written.
I think that Tim had said,
Yeah,
noted
that's
that you
something I
prefer to
agree.
identify the trees that were coming out and the trees
Oh.
that we're saving, rather than creating extra limits of work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Good. I couldn't remember why I had
Thank you.
that. And then, did we add, like, milkweed? I'm trying to find all these plans.
I don't know that I did add that to my seed mix.
Because I know
Yeah, can you
Eric.
put, can you
No,
put
I
your,
don't.
can you put your planting list up there?
It's not there.
The mitigation plan?
Yes,
Tim,
I remember that. That slipped through the cracks. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
there's no milkweed.
There is not. There certainly can be.
Good. No.
Yep, that was just an oversight on my part. I apologize.
Nope, that's fine. I'm going to let others go. I've got so many notes. Go ahead, anybody, Janet?
Okay, I'm just gonna say I'm disappointed that, what I'd hoped that some of these very large native black oaks could have been saved. I still see them not threatening the structure or the pool or the patio, but in areas where the grading is changing. And I had hoped that some of those would be saved, so it's a disappointment.
Disappointment.
It's a disappointment because also I hoped that would have changed some of the mitigation that was proposed, because I think that it was, I think I expressed the view that it was felt like it was too much, I mean, I hate to say this, but too much jammed into a very small area, into less than a quarter acre, something like 27 trees and 140 shrubs. But I noticed that the mitigation area has decreased in size from 7334 square feet to 6920, a 414 square foot decrease. Jen, I wonder if you could tell us why that dropped?
Actually, Dylan might be able to tell you better why that particular number dropped. I know one of the things that was on the original plan is where that 50-foot buffer follows along the coastal bank. Originally, I believe it was either the limit of work followed that 50-foot buffer line or our restoration area followed that 50-foot buffer line, and the limit of work is being kind of pulled back. There's that little triangle area. So I know that we reduced some of our numbers because we were only pulling it back to the limit of work. There's no reason to do restoration work outside of the limit of work there. So I know that that was either the limit of work changed or it was more of a housekeeping item. Dylan may have a little bit better insight as to how the numbers game played out. And he just reminded me that we did add Asclepias tuberosa to our seed mix. It is on our planting plan listed in our seed mix. So.
Okay.
And yeah, Dylan Lance, Crawford Land Management. The change in the mitigation area is just based on the what was required for the lot coverage that we had in this plan.
But the coverage didn't change, and in fact, it increased slightly by 27 square feet. So why would there be, the walkway and driveway showed a 27 square foot increase from the last plan that we saw? So I don't see that the coverage wouldn't justify a decrease in the mitigation.
Right. There may have been a change that we didn't pick up in our calcs, so we can double check that with Clark's office and make sure that the mitigation requirement is met.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anything else?
well,
Go ahead,
can I just add, it looks like we're getting close here to make a deal. Looks like the contractor unfortunately is a little disappointed that some things weren't noted on here about the size of your mitigation area. We're down to a few trees to save. I mean, I think we can, this is what, the third time we've been here? I hate to see these things go this long. I'm a big believer in this cutting the red tape. So, we're getting close, so,
And we've been trying.
Yeah.
We even worked on,
This would be our fourth meeting.
we even worked on.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Well,
we're down now to the.
No, it's your third, because
Well, we
the
had
28th we
right,
didn't
but the
meet.
first meeting was no quorum.
Yeah,
this is
so
pushing us out
that
quite a
doesn't
bit.
count.
Well,
'Cause we
pushing us
couldn't
out.
hear it.
And I
Yeah, it does.
understand, it's a frustrating thing, and we're trying to,
No,
trying to make a.
we do, Elise did do a gigantic effort in
Oh, yeah.
It's a big
getting an
plan.
order ready in case, so I just don't think we're quite there. I think at this point, anybody else here have, I think at this point, you're more than welcome to
You can
speak.
sit at the table if you want.
Yes, you have
No,
to
you have
Table.
to speak into the microphone.
Turn that
And
microphone on and we'll.
put on the, make sure the green light's on, and identify yourself.
Of course. My name is Everett Housing. I'm the neighbor, so I'm looking forward to the new neighbors. I just wanted to suggest that on the what's it called, on the borderline, on the property line, that we could put some native cedars all the way through to take that into consideration, just for the sake of privacy and also because the amount of stuff that is being, that is going. So I just wanted to put that point out there and for you to consider.
Can you show us where your property line is?
We're right here.
Okay.
Okay.
I noticed that on your side, do you have anything on your border?
Well, we do.
You can't,
I don't have them here, but there's a couple of trees.
you
though.
need
Yeah.
to speak there, unfortunately, sorry.
You see, when you do a mitigation, it's supposed to look like a natural setting. It's not supposed to be a soldier row of evergreens to screen, you know, from them to you.
Yeah.
But nothing stops you from putting a screening in.
I understand that, and but I was just saying, as we're looking at this, we might have an opportunity to do together what we could do, you know, mutually. So there's a mutual benefit here, so.
Okay.
Right.
So Jen, can you tell us what, there are mitigation trees, it looks like? Or other, I'm not sure what they are, along that property line? Do you know what they are?
There's a mix of different things. It looks like there is some American beech and some serviceberry. Let's see. Yeah, American beech and serviceberry. It looks like is what's there. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we can move species around.
I mean, you have tupelos, you have FG, American beech. I mean, you know, you service berries all along the border.
Yeah, there's 11 trees being proposed
Yeah,
along that
there's
line.
quite a bit going right down that border.
I only see 2
And there's
holes.
still the vegetated 50-foot buffer, which is, which has pitch pine and oak in it.
Right.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So a lot of us would like to see some of those trees saved, but they have offered us a plan that kind of accounts for those trees, and
Oh, it
they've
does.
done the doubles and whatever. When do we say, okay, we accept your plan because you did what we asked you to do?
I think we're
Because
Real
what do
close.
you actually want them to do? What would you like them to change?
I'm not going to speak for, I don't have a lot I need.
Yeah, I don't
You
know.
As long as the milkweed was in.
It is.
Yeah, and we have lighting is on one of the plans with some detail about it, so that helped. We have the detail on the circle work. You've marked the, you know, edgings or split small, fences and all of that.
We pretty
It
much
does
did
sound like
everything.
I need to confirm my mitigation calculation
Yes.
with what is on Clark's plan, and I will make sure that our mitigation area meets the requirement.
Can I just ask
So
one
I'm not
question?
exactly sure, how that got awry.
Jana, which number trees were you concerned with? Which number?
Well, I'm generally concerned with the very large 16-inch.
Which number?
Number 30, number 35, number
So what about-
28.
28. It's,
28,
and
35.
and-
What do we got, people? Could we save 35? I mean, you know.
44 is being saved. I know that.
Yep.
I mean, I just think some of these, if they're not where
28.
you need to remove for the foundation, it doesn't make sense, like 35. Absolutely.
35 and 28?
Yep,
Yeah.
there you go, baby. That's,
Can I get an order?
We are, we have one
this is how you do,
I-
this is how you do
Right,
the deals.
those are there, they're there for we're putting in
The wells.
one.
Ian put that well in there so that we've changed the grading a little bit, so hopefully 35 is at the bottom of that. We can work around that. And then 28 is some of the grading going on there, but we will, you know.
How about
It's not in my
21?
way of construction, it's not in my way of foundation.
Right.
How about 21? Is that
You need a
because
You need a
of,
careful
All right, hold on.
operator. Careful, get a good careful operator in there. when he's-
Yeah, no, I have one, yeah, it'll be fine.
can we do 21?
No,
Well, 21 would be a problem
Yeah.
in 10 years.
yeah,
So we'd be back before you're trying to,
cut it down.
yeah.
Hey,
I have to keep trying
hey.
and yelling
well,
numbers.
there-
How about
It's given
8?
pretty much everything you asked for, let's
How
put it
about
that way.
8? She wants
How
to know
about
about
8?
8, number 8.
It's within the
Number 8.
limit of work. That's the whole reason. Or 7.
No, we're pretty good. We're planting what you're asking for and doubling them up. And
Oh,
we
I
have to work
agree.
on the
I'm
site,
just-
and I have to grade it correctly. You don't want tree wells everywhere on these things because the animals will fall in there. That's why you did this retaining sections so that we don't end up with something like that.
Very good. The animals will fall in.
So no to 7 and 8. I'm trying.
So Cheryl, I'm going to speak to your question.
Yeah.
Because my, my heart, Karen knows my yard. I have lots of trees. And Peter Ford had my house built a long time ago. When you look at a tree with a 16.5-foot size, and you think about it being cut down and mitigated for with a little teeny bean that's gonna grow, and maybe my great-grandchildren will see it at a 16.5, that's what hits my heart. It's not, my father was in construction, I understand trees have to go down. It's just the complete removal of them. And the debate is worth it, and it's not that we don't want Minglewood to build a gorgeous house like you always do. It's the heart of that asset, and it's canopy.
It's a native canopy, and it's a
Yeah.
large, mature native canopy, and it's, holding a whole lot of carbon. And we should do, and we are doing everything we can to save them. And we understand, yes, we understand clearing of a lot. This is a natural lot. The trees are going to have to go to build a house, but it's our job to try to minimize the impacts and the damage to the natural resources.
So
Every one that's saved is another little win.
And I
It's-
think, can I just
Go ahead.
respond? I think that knowing the rationale of what you're fighting for makes it make more sense. So thank you.
I do agree, we are
They have to go to zoning.
incredibly close to an order, because we've already started it for you, hoping that maybe we could get there.
They have to go to zoning.
They,
'Cause
no,
really
they
all-
don't have to go to zoning.
We don't have to do
Sarah's letter says
anything.
it does.
It does?
No, it doesn't.
Oh.
No zoning.
Sarah
You're
Clark
being
says you
heard
do.
November 21st?
That's for the staircase.
What staircase?
We haven't filed that. with
We
you
haven't
yet.
filed it yet.
Oh, we
'Cause,
knew that would be
Yeah,
coming.
yeah, Rob had asked about that.
We had to go to zoning board of
Bob had-
appeals first. Robert asked that in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And we said, yes, we'd be following up with a separate application for that.
I thought I asked that.
Yeah, had we had
So-
known that the first meeting was gonna be delayed because of the quorum, we probably would have added it to the plan. But because of the zoning aspect, we wanted to get going on the permitting of the house, and then follow up with the stairs. 'Cause we didn't want-
So you going to zoning November 21st is not about what we're hearing?
Correct.
No,
Staircase down the back, coming to
Yeah.
us later.
the pathway there's a path.
I'd like
Right.
to, I would love to figure out a way that we can,
So, all right, so this is, we just need the mitigation calculation checked, Jen.
So can we get that to you and not have to come to another meeting?
Yeah,
Oh, well, that's fine.
Well, we're gonna be back the first meeting in November for them to vote on the order.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to vote on the order.
yeah.
What I mean.
It's not-
In order, we're not voting to issue the
So
order
now we're going to
today. It's
November?
not ready, and you
Yeah, we
haven't
talked about
received it
that
to
they-
review.
that they
Yeah.
weren't gonna vote on the order today.
Okay,
We're gonna have to add some stuff.
all right, so can we pretty much, when you
We're-
tell us what you want, we go back and everybody does what you asked for. So we're gonna add the couple of, milkweed.
Yep.
You want some milkweed added in here,
It's
Jen?
in there, they said.
You're gonna.
It's on there.
no-
It's
It's
on
on
there.
there? Oh, she found it, okay, so that's already there. So
You
we're
had a
just gonna
couple of trees.
recalculate your,
So the only thing is the mitigation calculation
Mm-hmm.
by what I think. So I think we've already, Elise, it's already started the order.
And
Yep.
2 trees.
And take
And the 2 trees that
Right,
we've
but
talked
we
about.
can in the order say that those trees are not
Exactly.
to be removed.
Exactly.
Right, so they-
I'll have
all they do
28
is-
and 44 in the order. Yeah.
Put on the plan that they're staying.
28
28, 35, and 44.
Oh, there's 3.
3.
Where's
28.
44? Oh, the one
In the middle of the
One in the middle.
circle.
Yep.
well, that's a good compromise, right?
So,
Fine?
I think we can go to an order, and, because we already have begun it, I think we can have it for the 5th, or the 4th, what is it, the 4th, the 5th? 6th? 6th. God, I won't get it yet. So I think we can have a motion to go to the 6th.
I move that we continue, I never remember the name of this, partial H13 Captain Knowles Way to November 6th for an order of conditions.
Second.
All right, Paul.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Oops, Janet. Aye. Eric.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
And I say aye. I was just checking to see if you were paying attention.
Not really.
Very much. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saving 3 trees.
Yes.
It means a lot.
Okay, Catherine.
Okay, notice of intent at 594 Old Harbor Road, map 16H, parcel 10A-7A for Amanda P. and Christina D. Van Fleck, invasive plant management and restoration.
Good afternoon, Mike Tanis, Blue Flax. I'll start with an apology for not staking the site. So that was,
Well,
We could.
I am sorry
kind of
about
harder to get to.
It is a beautiful site.
that. Yeah, it's a great spot,
And thank you for doing this work, because it'll be even better.
of course. So the property at 594 Old Harbor Road on the western shore of Pleasant Bay, north of Turn Island. Resource areas on site include coastal dunes, salt marsh, coastal bank, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the associated buffers. Also, according to NHESP, there are estimated and priority habitats of rare species on the property. The top of the coastal bank is vegetated with native bayberry and beach plum and non-native crabapple trees. Additional native vegetation in the buffer zones, include oak, black cherry, eastern red cedar, and arrowwood viburnum. The bank is invaded by shrub honeysuckle, common privet, multiflora rose, Asiatic bittersweet, black swallowwort, and porcelain berry. There is also a large stand of Japanese knotweed on the bottom of the coastal bank and in the coastal dune. So the project's main goal is to treat, remove, and manage the knotweed and the other invasive species in the bank and the dune resource areas, and restoring the areas with 27 shrubs of native bayberry and beach plum. So the invasive species will be cut flush with the ground, treated with systemic herbicide, and left to decompose in the ground. And then the area will be seeded with a mix of native grasses and wildflowers. And then the shrubs will be planted. I got a little out of order there. The knotweed will be treated by being mown twice throughout the growing season, and then treated with a systemic herbicide when it's flowering in the fall. And once that knotweed is 80% controlled, the area will be plugged with native beach grass. And any questions?
Yeah, where do I sign?
How long will it take, how many seasons will it take, do you think, to really eradicate or get control of the knotweed?
We usually say 5 years.
Of each
But
year you mow it?
Each year we mow it twice.
And then cut it and then inject it, and it comes back and you do the same thing?
Yes, it'll be a foliar application on the leaves, so we cut it.
Oh, you don't
and
inject, you put it up on the leaves?
When it's that big of a stand, when we get it under control after the first year or so, then we're able to treat each one
Okay,
individually.
wow.
But, yeah,
It's a big job.
it's a tough
No,
one, so.
it's
Yeah.
the hardest one I know
Yeah.
of. Well, maybe Phragmites, but.
Yeah, I had a question. When you plug it, do you have to remove the old roots, or do you just plug around it?
We would just plug around it at
Yeah.
that point, yeah.
Because the roots are pretty, clumpy, and it's such a enclosed site, such a cluster. It's going to be nothing but woody roots.
Yeah, again, we won't be plugging until it's roughly 80% under control, so hopefully at that point, 80% of the roots will be dead too, and we'll
Yeah.
be plugging it in the gaps.
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
Do you have the NHESP letter yet?
We do not have it yet.
Okay. And that one large area with the knotweed that we've been talking about, how are you getting to that? Because I assume there has to be an access path somewhere to get to it.
So right at the end of the driveway, it's tall now, it's 4 feet, but it's all
Right.
goldenrod, and so we have just been walking through that, but we would mow a little walking path through that.
And then just replant that path that you've made? Because I'm assuming
Yes.
you'd go from one of your other areas that, that are above it down to this bigger knotweed, because then you're not, making as large a path someplace else.
Right, yeah, right in between, we kind of left that area open in between the two green areas. Where
Right.
That's just naturally the easiest way to walk down there.
Okay, so that's how you'll go?
Yeah.
All right, and then you'll just replant whatever was there?
Yeah, so in the two green areas to the west, that's where we'll be planting. There's a lot of vines and stuff climbing up native. In the winter when I was there, it was easier to see, but there's a lot of seedling bayberry and stuff already growing back.
Okay,
So our hope is once we remove the vines, it'll kind of fill in and we'll just plug in the gaps with more shrubs.
great. Okay, anybody else? Anything else? Go ahead.
There's a patch of English ivy by the house
Yes.
that's within our area. Is it possible to get rid of that?
It's kind of contained because it's surrounded by lawns, so we didn't deem it to be urgent at the moment, and,
Okay.
The customer might like it, who knows?
yeah.
The customer isn't always right in conservation. It's fine, so it is contained, but it never hurts to ask.
Anybody else? Then I think we can go to an order.
Yep.
Nobody has any major issues.
Nope.
So, let's see. How soon do you want this order?
We have 2 weeks.
Yeah.
As soon as
You want
possible.
November 6th?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move that we continue.
Wait, Teresa's coming up.
Teresa's coming.
Sorry, I just want to jump in. Ideally, we would love to be able to get a treatment on the knotweed this season.
Right.
Our concern was because we haven't received the no-take letter from NHESP yet, whether or not we would have to delay the issuance of the
Yeah.
order until we get I'm presuming we're going to get a no-take from NHESP, but they do have to review it.
Right.
So
Do you think that's coming soon?
Well, they have 90 days to review the project. So I would love to think it would come soon. I can certainly send Emily an email and ask her if she thinks they'll be able to turn it around quickly, but I'm not sure, so.
How about we try and say for November 6th and
That
cross our
sounds great,
fingers?
yes.
What's the outside date for knotweed treatment in the fall?
So first frost, so
Okay.
we're still good. And knotweed's
Getting
still
close.
flowering pretty vigorously. We like to treat it after it's done flowering because
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
want pollinators actively on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know in this particular area, I haven't been there. I don't know if Mike, if it's flowering right now.
I didn't see anything.
No, it's not.
I
Okay,
didn't
so,
notice
so
it.
as long as we can get it before frost, that would be great. So November 6th would be fantastic, and if we can get that no-take letter from NHESP, that would be great.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, we'll have our fingers crossed, and we'll get it set for November 6th, and then see where we go from there. So I need a motion.
I move that we continue 594 Old Harbor Road for an order of conditions to November 6th, 2024.
Second?
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay,
Thank you.
Catherine?
Okay, moving on to the certificates of compliance. The following is a request for a certificate of compliance at 771 Fox Hill Road and Easy Street, each area, maps 12L and 12M, parcels 12 and Easy Street, for Easy Street Association, DEP SE number 10-2876, proposed bank stabilization.
Okay. We have somebody here, Catherine. Go ahead.
I actually don't have a presentation. It's a request for the COC. I'm just here to answer any questions if you have some.
All right.
No.
Catherine?
For the record, I'm Mark Burgess with Shorefront Consulting.
Hi,
so-
Mark.
Hi.
All right, Catherine, go ahead and
Okay, so
give our thoughts.
I recommend continuing this application until we can get some additional submittal for this based on some special conditions in the order of condition. And the additional items would include any available pictures of the site post-construction, post-storms, post-nourishment. 2, a report to summarize the work that has been done on the site since the installation of the fiber rolls, as one of the special conditions was to submit annual reports, and we haven't had any submitted, and we haven't had any of the pictures submitted. Number 3 would be installation of beach grass on the dune, because it doesn't appear any beach grass was planted, and that was on the plan that was approved with the order of conditions. And then additional information on the removal of those rock steps that are at the bottom of the timber stairs, as we did not see those as being permitted with the permitted timber stairs that are there.
Got that?
I have it. I'd like to respond if possible.
Go ahead.
So I was involved with the project from the beginning, design and permitting, and I did periodic inspections through construction. After that, I wasn't involved. The applicants, after speaking with them, so the fiber rolls have always remained covered like they were supposed to. So in all these almost 10 years now, the fiber rolls have never had to have any maintenance. Planting on where the renourishment is done, they renourish almost every year because they lose it every year because they're right across from the break. So they've been actively renourishing it almost every year, not quite, but almost every year. In doing that, planting beach grass on that part of the sand that's going to wash away every year is not practical. It takes 3 years for it to root and get developed, and it's just going to get wiped out every year. Available pictures, there's some people in the association, there's only 2 original owners left. So I supplied some pictures after a storm, but in 2015, but we're not really aware of any other pictures that were taken. They could search for them, but in reality, it is what it is. The system's maintained very well. It's performing exactly as designed. And that also would go with reports. I know that it was in the order. I wasn't contracted to do reports. I didn't know whether the applicant was doing them themselves or not. Having said that, I think the track record of how the site has been taken care of is kind of your report. They've done a really good job in maintaining this installation. They've notified the town every time they've done nourishment. I mean, this is one of the ones that has gone. It's gone right. Whether or not it's been well documented, it's gone right. There is a closing at stake. I know that's not your issue, but the truth of the matter is there's a property closing at stake to close out this order. So if there's any way we can negotiate something to move it forward, everyone would appreciate that.
Can you speak to the rocks at the end of the stairs that should have been permitted and were not?
Yeah, I noticed that in pictures. I mentioned it to the applicants. They actually tried to remove them, and they were so heavy they broke a wheelbarrow. I said, "Well, how'd you get them there in the first place?" And they just rolled them down. So they tried to remove them at my suggestion. They tried to remove them because I said, "Hey, those aren't in the picture. They need to go." They tried, so that without bringing in a piece of equipment, which would do more damage, I think, than the steps, they weren't able to remove them, even though I asked them to. Now, and practically speaking, the steps are there because the beach has dropped a little bit over time, so they added those steps to get safe access to the beach. They're not. I know they're not on the plan. I totally get that, but they're not really doing any harm either.
Yeah.
And all of that could be addressed if they're allowed to maintain the stairs as part of this certificate of compliance, then that could be taken care of when they do that, which is imminent.
Catherine, your thoughts?
The stairs, and if any of the stairs are going to be rebuilt in kind or preferably a seasonal staircase, that would need a separate notice of intent application. But I would like to respond to the beach grass comment because I know that a lot of times planting beach grass low on a nourished bank or dune doesn't get well established and I agree that it shouldn't be planted at the bottom. In this case, I was out there, and the abutting property has very well established vegetation on their nourished area, so it'd be nice, or I believe that if it was planted towards the top, it could establish itself down the bank over time, which is, I believe, what has happened at the abutting property.
Okay. Catherine, the pictures that I sent you from 2015, I know that's not the site, right? So the pictures from 2015 showed a complete removal of all of the sediment and a vertical scarp of all of the sediment that was ever placed on the property. So that could certainly happen again. If we get lucky and it doesn't happen in 3 years, then some beach grass would get established. Which property is that?
That doesn't even look like the stairway that was there.
No.
Oh, where is that?
Yeah,
That's the problem.
that's what you provided.
The stairs that are down is just an old rickety old stair going down there, like something out of Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't been there either, and I should have come on my way here today.
But I will
didn't.
agree, though, that on the left-hand side of the stairs, you could see there
Yeah.
was recent, I mean, I don't know, maybe on the very top, beach grass might grow on it, but it looks like it gets hammered all the time. And, I mean, if you've been doing this for 20 years, I'd say you're pretty good stewards here on the property. I know that there's one gentleman there selling the property. I know it doesn't really pertain to this, but I do sympathize that you can't sell the property, right, with this, I would imagine, with this going on.
They don't like it.
And as far as those 2 stones on the bottom, can't we just mark 2 stones on the bottom of a plan and update it or something? I mean, just, I don't know what to say about this.
Yeah, I know.
One of the things that concerns me in this discussion, and trust me is a good thing, and the track record is an important thing, but if you don't have the track record documented, what is the track record? We don't have the photos and we don't have the documentation, and it's a pain in the neck to need it, but I feel for the next owners who will have to go through it next. Somebody needs to take responsibility and complete the work on the documentation that was required in the order.
Well, Jim O'Connell will be the remaining original owner, and I asked him about that yesterday, because Mr. Gale is the one selling his property. So there'll be one original owner in the last 10 years. He's not planning on going anywhere anytime, so they should resume or start annual photos and picture taking. And you can always, if you made that a condition as part of the certificate of compliance, that would be an ongoing condition, and if they didn't do it, then you can issue a violation, so it's an enforceable condition.
Bill, go ahead, you have your hand up. And you're muted.
Who's Bill?
Bill Litchfield.
Oh, Bill.
Thank you. My apologies for being
No, that's
muted
okay.
as well as not being there. I represent the Gales in the upcoming sale, and I just wanted to echo both what Mr. Hilbert said and also what Mark just said in terms of a certificate of compliance for the property at 771 Fox Hill Road could certainly have an ongoing condition. And as Mark indicated, Jim O'Connell, I mean, the applicant was actually the Easy Street Association. It's just that the Gales property is what's at the immediate issue, trying to have a sale a week from tomorrow. So obviously, I understand that the track record isn't supported with the appropriate documentation, but the site speaks for itself in terms of the way they've kept it. So if the commission could see its way clear to issuing a certificate of compliance, that would make the Gales' lives a lot easier.
Thank you.
And I got a wonderful history lesson while I was there. That's the launching for the
Dirigibles.
Yeah, for the airplanes. They launched it right off of that street back in the day.
Catherine, thoughts?
I believe we could issue the certificate of compliance with My thought is if you could get any records from TW Nickerson just showing, and
Yes.
they should have some sort of records of just showing, you know, how much has been placed over the years, and having those as the ongoing conditions. I do have, I think it's 5 or 6 of them, just with the nourishment and with the pictures. The stairs, I still think the stairs they were originally a separate order of conditions. And if you didn't want to remove them, you could just include them with a new notice of intent for stairs, which also stairs have to go through ZBA. So I don't
Right.
believe we could just approve it through this certificate of compliance.
I
But we
think,
could issue that certificate of compliance just with like any records that TW Nickerson has for the nourishment. And I still would like at least, I think, a little bit of beach grass at the top. I agree at the bottom, it doesn't make sense, but at the top, it can start naturalizing itself down the bank over time. I've seen that happen.
so could we add that into the certificate of compliance as an ongoing, is that they need to plant the beach grass at the top? And also that we are not saying, I don't know how to word this, but that the rocks at the end of the stairs were not permitted?
Unfortunately, an excavator won't reach down there to pick them up.
Yeah, and
Yeah. They just wouldn't be able to be included with this certificate of compliance because they weren't part
Right.
of this notice of intent. That would be just something we would have to deal with separately. So this certificate of compliance could be issued with all the ongoing conditions, request for information from TW Nickerson over their time that they've done it, and the beach grass can be one of the ongoing maintenance conditions
Okay.
because it was in the order.
I was just wondering if we needed to say something about the rocks at the bottom of the stairs so that if/when they came for an NOI for the stairs to do work on those, it's not assumed that they were permitted.
There could probably be a note in the
file.
certificate. I don't know how we would want to do that.
I don't
And
know.
if I could, Madam Chairman, Bill Litchfield.
Sure.
If I could, we will all understand that the rocks have not been permitted, and that if, in the event there is any further request for anything, it could be raised at that time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because if you remove the stairs, then you can run a little track machine down there and because you're going to disturb that area anyway, pick them up and put them, ride them back up.
Or include them in the next
Yeah,
application and be done and not have to move
Right,
them.
or make the stairs longer.
Oh, yeah, right, that's even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stairs just have to be a separate.
Yeah.
So you'll also include the conditions that are in the order now for ongoing reporting and
yes.
photographs. You don't, because I didn't put those in my letter, but you will.
Oh, believe me, we'll
Yes.
have our ongoing conditions.
Absolutely.
Catherine's got those. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Madam
Then-
Chair, did you want me to list those conditions now so that Mark can write them and have them as note?
Would you like to know what the ongoing conditions will be, or just having them in the certificate of compliance with the
If-
ongoing?
If Catherine has them teed up, then I'm happy to hear them.
Okay, go ahead, Catherine.
Okay, just the numbers. It's special conditions A9, A11, A12, A13, A14, and A16.
Okay?
I think those are all of them.
All right, then I guess we can approve this certificate of compliance, so.
I move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 771 Fox Hill Road and Easy Street.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet? Aye. Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right, next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, actually.
Thank you.
I appreciate how much this board, I've watched this whole hearing, and I haven't been here in a couple of years. Bless me, I haven't been here for about 2 years. But it's an
Yeah.
entirely,
Have you
entirely,
missed us? That's
entirely different board. It's a welcome change. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Catherine, next.
Okay, request for a certificate of compliance at 43 Shattuck Lane. Ernest A. Wallen III, map 15C, parcel 14-4, SE 10-3343, proposed elevated walkway catwalk.
And your thoughts?
And I recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance on this one.
Great. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Perfect. All right, we can have a motion.
I move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 43 Shattuck Lane.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet? Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, next one.
Okay, request for certificate of compliance at 146 Strong Island Road for Chris Dittrich, map 13M, parcel 42-C45, Mass DEP SE number 10-3530, removal of dwelling, sewage disposal system and hardscape, construction of dwelling, pool, and hardscape. Request is for a partial certificate of compliance.
Okay, and your thoughts?
And so this one was discussed with Paul Whiteman, who's out today, the conservation agent, and he recommends the issuance of the partial certificate of compliance with allowing additional time for the vegetation to establish a healthy growth.
Okay, I think we can go to a motion
Well,
for a partial.
all right, well, I just want to.
Okay.
Here I am, Mr. Easy on a lot of stuff, but this one here down the road, I mean, I think that everything is well watered. I noticed that the lawn is very green. It's supposed to be temporary irrigation. I can tell the lawn is heavily fertilized with nitrogen, herbicide, maybe pesticide, maybe fungicide. And the whole idea is to irrigate temporarily to get it established, and it's beyond that. I looked at the plants, and they all seem to be fine with me, and it's, all the irrigation's still there. So down the road, when this comes back, I expect the temporary irrigation to be removed.
Yeah, I think that that's the part that they're not asking for a COC for.
I can see why.
So, yeah, so,
Okay.
yes, I agree. It has to be removed, and when they come for the full, we will deal with that then.
Okay.
But I totally agree. We can do a motion.
Thanks for getting it into the record. I move that we,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
pardon.
I'm sorry. I was hoping to stay seated. John O'Reilly, representing Chris Dietrich, who's also in the audience. We had given staff 3 ongoing conditions. And I
Yeah,
didn't know if you wanted to incorporate it.
they will be incorporated.
Okay.
Yes, when the coordinator of wetlands and Catherine, receive that, they incorporate it into what we issue. We just don't get into the details here if
Okay,
we don't
not a
have
problem.
to.
Thank you.
But thank you.
All set? All set. I move that we approve a partial certificate of compliance for 146 Strong Island Road.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, Catherine. Thank you.
Okay. Request for certificate of compliance at 90 Squanto Drive, map 10C, parcel 21-E4 for 90 Squanto Drive LLC, Mass DEP number SE 10-3633, tight tank installation. And I recommend the certificate of compliance for this one.
Great, thank you. So, need a motion.
I move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 90 Squanto Drive.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, next. I think it's our minutes.
Minutes. Oh, I don't see minutes on here.
Yeah, we have well, I can do it, Catherine. We have minutes to be
Okay.
approved, August 7th, 2024, August 14th, 2024, and September 4th, 2024. Did anybody have any modifications that weren't put into any of them.
Well, this will go quick if Bob's not here.
Okay, now when he listens to this,
I'm sorry, Bob, no offense if you're listening. He probably, I'm sure he isn't. Who listens to himself?
no, but when he listens, when he comes back to listen to the meeting.
Oh.
So now you're
He
on
could take-
record.
He could take a joke.
Sir. They have any modifications, and I forgot to check who,
I can't, I'm abstaining
Yeah.
from 2, so we can't,
yeah, we
do
can't
all
put
3.
them all together, but
Yeah.
can we bunch any of them?
I'm out September.
Yeah, I
I was
know.
out the 2 Augusts, so you.
Okay, so we have to do them separately.
I'm here for the 2 August, so everybody else.
Oh,
I'm here for the 2 August.
So,
Let's do the 2 Augusts then, because,
well, but let's see. August 14th, Eric and Janet have to not be on.
right?
And August 7th, Janet and Elise. So we have to do them all separate.
All right.
Okay, so can we have a motion for August 7th?
I move that we approve the minutes for August 7th, 2024.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Abstain.
Elise?
Abstain.
Eric?
Aye?
And Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. If you're absent, you can't.
Oh, all right.
You have to abstain. So now August 14th. You're going to abstain, but you can second. Go ahead.
I move
Elise.
that we approve the minutes for August 14th, 2024.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Abstain.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Abstain.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, now let's go to September 4th.
I move that we approve the minutes for September 4th, 2024.
And Paul and Cheryl have to abstain. So, did you second?
Second.
Paul?
Abstain.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Abstain.
And I say aye.
Yay.
Done.
Yeah, we did it.
Okay. Are there, Catherine, any further items to be brought before us?
There are no unforeseen items today.
Yes. So we need one more motion.
Well, then I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Sayonara.
We are out of here.
Oh, my God.